Hello, everyone, and welcome to Director Watch, an AwardsWatch podcast that attempts to get inside the mind of cinema's greatest auteurs, explore what drives them, and maybe we go on a few unrelated tangents along the way. I'm Ryan McQuade, the executive editor here at AwardsWatch, and joining me, as always, is my co-host, Jay Ledbetter.
And so excited to announce that we are doing our first on-location podcast. We have rented out a British townhouse exclusively for this episode, and we have turned the gain on our microphones all the way up, so you will hear every single slight movement anyone makes in honor of our film today, Phantom Thread.
Also, Jay has made me this lovely spread, including this wonderful omelet. Thank you, Jay.
A delicious mushroom omelet.
You knew how to just get me down, because I get so up and I get so in my own way, and I just need to eat. And oh my God, are these yellow? Good for you. Where'd you find these?
It's going to be a weird podcast.
It's going to be really weird, but it's also going to be ghostly, maybe a little bit, maybe gothic-y a little bit, romantic.
It's going to be haunting.
It's going to be haunting. It's going to be a lot of things. It's going to probably be the longest episode we've ever done. And Jay, we couldn't do it alone. What do you think? We're going to talk about Phantom Thread without the, what is this? Let me read my notes here. The Phantom Thread expert of film Twitter in the world.
And the reason this will be the longest podcast we've ever done?
And yes, and let me just, the reason this will be the longest podcast ever in Director Watch history, of course, is our own associate editor and returning champion, Sophia Ciminello.
Returning champion. Well, thank you guys for having me back, my old so-and-sos. I am so excited to, talk about sausages, tea, when you prefer oil and salt, but you've prepared it with butter.
Oh, I've got thoughts on that. Yeah.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah. We have a lot of thoughts on food, on the fashion in this movie, and whether or not these dresses are actually pretty or not. Wow. I have a lot of takes on that. So, but yeah, thank you guys so much for having me. This is, I think, the only episode really for me. I know I was on for Boogie Nights earlier in this series, but I feel like this is my opus. Like, this is what I was put on this earth to do. Talk about Phantom Thread.
What she's saying is,
podcasting has been building to this.
Yes.
Yeah. What she's saying is, fuck the Boogie Nights episode and don't listen to it ever again.
Good episode.
Yeah, it was a good episode, but not anymore, evidently. It was
this is going to be the height, I think, of.
Yeah, I don't think you're ever allowed.
The height of Director Watch, but maybe the height of my podcasting.
I don't think you're ever going to be allowed to come back on.
This is it.
Like
Daniel Day-Lewis. This is my final performance.
Yeah. Nah, we'll get you back.
Sophia's already got her appointment for getting sleeve tattoos.
Yeah, I'm gonna, become a tailor. I already live in New York. I have that down. Gonna get Arthur Miller's house out in Connecticut.
I'm just telling you, I think like when we see him on the street nowadays, and you and I, Sophia, just initially text each other the photos of the paparazzi with his weird ass outfits.
Yeah, he's kind of dressing like 15 years too young.
But he's also like pulling
from about
it off.
10 years ago.
Yeah, but he's pulling it off.
He's giving Bushwick, but like a really wealthy artist who lives in Bushwick, but actually lives on the Lower East Side. Head to toe Carhartt, rolled up sleeves with the tattoos. He's looking great. I love the outfits.
He's really staying in shape.
He really is.
He is.
Yeah. He's eating like an almond a day and looking fantastic.
Like Killian in his preparation for Oppenheimer.
Exactly.
And in this film, he's eating an Alma a day.
Oh my God. Jesus Christ. Apologize to the audience out there. Jay's under the weather, so the puns might be 10 times worse than they usually are.
I hope so. They have to be for this episode.
They're delusional. Yeah, they're these tangents are brought to you by Dayquil.
I cannot have puns in the morning.
Yeah. Can't have puns. No more stodgy puns.
To start my day.
Yeah.
It's very hard for you to recover for the rest of the day.
That is his maybe. Okay. I think that this is the only way. Well, Sophia, I already asked you the questions that we usually ask everybody up at the top of this. We know you like Paul Thomas Anderson. We know you like this movie. This is all kind of just out there. people have asked you this many times before, so let's just get into the movie, right? Which is Phantom Thread, and the movie 2017. Movie was directed by Paul Thomas Anderson, written by Paul Thomas Anderson, stars Daniel Day-Lewis, Leslie Manville, Vicky Krieps. Set in the 1950s London, Reynolds Woodcock is a renowned dressmaker whose life is disrupted by a young, strong-willed woman, Alma, who becomes his muse, his lover, and his wife. This is a big one for Sophia, because this is not only Sophia's favorite Paul Thomas Anderson film. If I am correct, this is your first film in your 4 favorites on your Letterboxd 4 favorites. This is also your number 1 film of all time, if I'm not mistaken.
That's correct. It's my
Holy
only
moly.
one in my Letterboxd 4 that will never change.
It'll never change.
The other 3, I alternate in and out depending on my mood, depending on recent watches. But I believe right now I have some mixture of Ordinary People, 3 Women, sometimes Barry Lyndon's in there, all that jazz. But Phantom Thread is unchanged. Like, this is my favorite movie ever made. My life's dream is to write the Criterion essay for this movie if it ever comes out on Criterion. Unfortunately, a lot of PTA's movies aren't on Criterion, but if this one ever does, I want to write the essay, because this movie, it changed my life. And it's just really everything that I love about film, I think, in the perfect form. And I resisted calling it my favorite movie for a really long time. I think I would cite a lot of its influences instead, Barry Lyndon being one of them, Rebecca. But this is really it. This is the movie I love more than any other movie, and I think the movie I've seen the most.
I didn't realize quite the magnitude of this episode.
Now
I was born for this.
Now you're jokey puns.
I'm just gonna let Sophia cook.
Yeah. cook an omelet
with all the butter.
Yeah. Yes. Why is it your favorite movie of all time then, Sophia?
Yeah, I think so. To start out, so this movie came out in 2017, and I was living a completely different life than the one I'm living now. I lived in DC. I was a consultant. I didn't have, I would say, a lot of friends who were big movie people. That was kind of like my thing, and I didn't have a ton of people to talk about film with. I would try, but it was just kind of not, I'm making this sound really sad, but it was just like not, met really. And I was kind of desperate for a creative outlet. And when I saw this movie for the first time in January, it was January 11th of 2018. I know. And I have an anniversary party every year where I make the breakfast based on when I saw the movie. Again, I was just obsessed. I saw it and I just knew I think it referenced so many other films and works of literature that I loved. It had my favorite actor in it. It was by my favorite filmmaker. I mean, so much just came together, I think, to make it the perfect thing. But I was just obsessed. I saw it and tears were streaming down my face by the end of it. I had no idea why. I was just so moved and stunned by what I'd witnessed. And I was just obsessed with this movie for months. It was the year of MoviePass too, so I saw it once a week. For at least a few months.
R.I.P. more MoviePass.
R.I.P. Yeah, and then I just started reading everything I could about it, listening to everything that I could about it. It just got under my skin in the best way possible. And I think, it's somewhat of an isolating experience to be obsessed with a PTA movie when it first comes out, because I think for most people, it takes some time. Like most masterpieces, like most great works of art, it takes time for people to appreciate them in full and for it to, I think, really connect. And there was so much just, I think, horrible criticism written about this movie that I just didn't understand at the time. We'll talk about it. Jennifer Lawrence, especially. But that's what happens when you date Darren Aronofsky. Anyway, that meant that I felt all of a sudden like there was a space for me to start writing about movies, talking about movies seriously, because I didn't see a lot of the ideas that I had about this movie written down and brought up. And I just thought, okay, like this is like there's room for me in this space. How am I going to, do this going forward? So it inspired me to start writing again about movies, to create my own podcast, to eventually join AwardsWatch. This movie is everything to me. And it's hard to explain because so much of that is just very personal and emotional, but I feel like I just click with this movie's style and the way that it looks, the way that it sounds, the way that these characters move in and out of the frames. And most importantly, its sense of humor, I just click with so naturally. And I love it. I noticed, the first time that I saw it, I started laughing within the first few minutes of this movie, really, when he's getting ready in the morning and when he's, no more stodgy things and he's being a little baby. And I realized that other people weren't laughing. And that made me just think a little bit more deeply about the movie. So, yeah, I think long-winded way to say, like this movie is just it's so important for me and it totally changed my life and the trajectory of my career and of my interests and how I go about living my life.
Jay,
Wow.
try to top that.
What a I'm tearing up over here.
Oh, don't cry.
What a trajectory. Yeah. All right. What to say about this movie? Yeah, this movie rules. I will say I will not have nearly the sincere emotional arc that Sophia did with this movie, but I like it a lot. And I will say this for my taste personally, I'm generally not a huge fan of super mannered stuff. However, if you have like a super mannered movie that's kind of pointing out how ridiculous something this mannered is, I'm with you 100%. Barry Lyndon, one of my 5 favorite movies ever made. And you certainly feel the DNA of that in this movie for sure. Because Barry Lyndon, that's another movie where you might be the only person laughing in the theater, but I think that movie is absolutely hysterical. And I do, as always, a very odd experience when you are just on a different wavelength on a movie than everyone else in the theater. And sometimes it can be the exact opposite where it's terrible. And I see this the most at rep screenings. Sometimes people will go to like a rep screening and just start laughing hysterically at a movie that isn't trying to be funny.
Or the opposite,
so
where
annoying.
You're in a movie and it's so funny. Like this past year when I saw Barbie, I saw it in a completely
but that is very overtly a comedy.
But there was nobody laughing throughout that entire film. Everyone was and I was laughing. And
this is why Oppenheimer will win Best Picture.
I'm sitting,
Bryant.
I was sitting there. I know I was genuinely shocked because I'm like, there's bits of comedy and sincerity and everything in a movie like that. But then,
that's not even. If no one was laughing in Barbie, it's just because they didn't think it was funny. That's a comedy.
Like an entire room. Maybe
they didn't get the Proustian flashback.
There's
joke.
different levels of comedy in that too. Like I don't it feels like when you go to critic screenings, they already have a stick up their ass about everything. Like you don't hear, the only time you ever hear, like I ever hear laughter is when they bring the normies in. You know what I mean? What?
That's not
what Jay's saying.
Critic screenings.
That's what Jay's saying. The normies got to come in.
But I mean,
the normies didn't need to come in for this one though.
Oh no! I'll tell you about mine. Yeah.
I think about a movie. You know which movie I think is like genuinely very funny, but also one of the most devastating movies of the last decade? Manchester by the Sea is overtly a very funny movie. It is also a very, very dark, heavy movie, but that's the whole point, is that it's about that balance. And this film is not trying to be that heavy, but it is trying to be, its humor comes from the fact that everyone is taking it so seriously. And that is inherently funny, especially in the hands of Daniel Day-Lewis. It's kind of what you were talking about, Ryan. I don't find There Will Be Blood as funny as you do, but the funny parts of There Will Be Blood come from the fact that Daniel Day-Lewis is so entirely locked in.
It's his delivery.
Everything that's even remotely funny is 10 times funnier.
Sophia, do you think that There Will Be Blood's funny?
I think There Will Be Blood is funny because of Daniel Day-Lewis. Also, just like that, the shot of him just floating in the water, scowling, I think is hilarious. Just little moments like that I find to be so funny. But I think that, this is more overtly a comedy than something like There Will Be Blood. But I think in a similar way, right? There Will Be Blood is very serious. It's trying to be this, massive epic tale. But this, I think, is more intellectually complex and how you can untangle its themes. And because of that, and the comedy that every actor in this movie is, putting into their parts, it just makes it, I think, stronger as a comedy or as, a funny movie by comparison. But I love There Will Be Blood too, and I do laugh quite a bit.
And that is, Ryan, that's kind of been the one, a little bit of a turning point for me is like starting with the master, he starts getting a lot more
he's
interesting thematically, I think.
Yeah.
And
he's
there's
a funny
lot
fucker
to unpack with everything. In this film, I mean, Sophia's right. This is a character study first and foremost, but the characters at play here are so complicated and messy and have allegiances. They're getting pulled in so many different directions. And I guess after talking about the nature of watching movies, I can actually talk about this movie. It is such an interesting movie because it is so beguiling. And at first, it does seem kind of so distant, trying to keep you away, kind of in the same way that the characters seem to be resisting any true personal relationships with one another. But when you have Reynolds and Alma finally able to kind of break through each other's shells, it becomes this kind of mental, emotional tug of war where you just have two people who kind of come from different worlds and different world views, but that somehow drives their own creativity to places they had never really gone before, or their emotions to places they'd never really gone before. And through that, you have really what you have are people who sort of enable each other's best and worst tendencies. And so you have Reynolds' career creatively, he seems to maybe be going to places he's never been before, but also not entirely as successful necessarily as they have been. And I'm sure Sophia's got all sorts of thoughts on the dresses that I probably don't have. But I look forward to hearing about that. And it is just, I mean, aesthetically, sonically, this is an ASMR movie. It is disturbing sometimes the level of detail of sound that you get in this movie. Just like, and I saw it with Inherent Vice too. With I think he started this where you can just hear when people are on a couch, you can hear them like the couch like squeaking when they move at all. And then he just ratchets that up to 100 in this movie, and it causes a real sense of discomfort because it is this intimacy that comes with feeling so physically close to something that you can hear it moving an inch. And so it really does wrap you up in that sensory way, which I really love. And I just remember watching this movie for the first time, and we'll just spoil it because whatever. When I see him knowingly biting into that omelet, I literally wanted to like stand up and applaud and just pump my fist. I was like, this is an incredible way to end this movie, to take a movie that is on its face so self-serious, even though to that point it really hadn't been, but to give it this kind of twisted, pulpy, almost like Verhoeven ending to the movie. We need to celebrate it. It was so good. I was in love with this movie when that happened. And it is, I mean, it's a masterpiece. He's got a lot of masterpieces, but this is one of them. I like this movie.
Yeah, it's great. And I love it. It's funny that PTA releases a movie in 2017, pretty good film year, 10 years after There Will Be Blood, which is such an important film, Jay, we've talked about for ourselves. Sophia, I don't know if you saw There Will Be Blood in the theaters, and obviously I know that that's such an important film for you as well. Everyone really of our generation, it's such an important film.
Mm-hmm. It's a great theatrical experience. It really is this, like, you get sucked in
from the
moment it starts as almost a silent film, right? And this is similar in that way too, and how
Yeah.
it pulls you in, but it's for a different reason.
Yes. And I think that, Jay, we talked about like turning points where for a long time you thought that There Will Be Blood was your favorite film of all time. Because when you saw it, when we all saw it at that age, it blew us all away. And this guy kind of turned the corner of his career, as we've been talking about, and really started, that's the perfect blend of the past and what he was about to make, right? And the marriage of both of those.
It's a transition point for him, for sure.
It's the biggest transition point of his career. And I think that 10 years later, when we're in our close to our late, in our late 20s, about to be in our 30s, this movie comes out. And I think this is the one for me that There Will Be Blood was my favorite Paul Thomas Anderson film when I was growing up. But now as an adult, this is my favorite Paul Thomas Anderson film. I think that this is his best movie. And
That's big.
I think it is. And I've just, I don't know, maybe it's just because of my nostalgia for that moment I first saw There Will Be Blood. And it's still a great movie. I love that movie so much. But I rewatched this movie in the last, 6 years, probably the most of any movie that I can remember of recent films, because it's, for me, so rewatchable. It's got such a great script. His acting is incredible, but it's also weirdly familiar because, and I know that everyone's always talked about this, but I think the thing that always drove me nuts about the negative criticisms were coming from people that hadn't been.
What are you guys talking about? This movie was like
no, it was.
When
there was, but there were
articles
specific.
About this calling it propaganda for toxic masculinity. Jennifer Lawrence said she couldn't finish it because she'd seen that story before in her life or whatever. It's like, I'm sorry, your relationship is not my problem.
You guys are plucking a needle out of a haystack with these think pieces.
It was when it came out, there was a I think people just weren't comfortable with where the story went. It is weird. And
I think that also speaks to where the culture was in 2018.
Of course.
That is a very 2018 article that you just spoke of.
It's right before any of us really started having a giant presence on film Twitter, and film Twitter sort of got.
We would have fixed it.
Yeah, we would have for sure. But I think
I would have gone mad.
But I think this is. But Sophia made a good point. It's like this was a movie that kind of turned myself into being very interested in writing about film again, and I had a podcast that nobody will ever find because it's all deleted off the internet. Much like Jay's like Raining Frog, I had one, I had like an old podcast. I forgot what the title was. It's like
the internet is forever.
This winter,
it was called Threading the Needle.
No, it was called like it was some sort of Oscar related thing, but like the podcast sort of kind of got away from that for a long time, and then I had JD over at In Session Film on as a guest in 2018. She's going to try to look it up. It doesn't exist. I made sure that the internet is completely unaware of that show anymore.
She was actually looking for more paparazzi Daniel Day-Lewis photos.
Exactly. That's
actually closer to the truth. Yes.
But no, it was. I remember seeing this at an advanced screening. We're way in advanced screening. Actually, it was very rare that San Antonio gets an advanced screening of things. So I saw this in early December, and I took my wife, and we both went, and I, from the get-go, was in love with this film. But then as the movie went on, I started looking over at the person next to me and realizing she was really enjoying it, but there were also like moments where she was sitting there going like, this is you, asshole. Like, this is all you. Like, because anytime you're in a relationship with someone that is remotely creative, the other person feels a certain way and can feel, I think that there's a lot of bullshit that they had to deal with. And Alma definitely has to deal with a lot of bullshit in this film from Reynolds. And I know my wife, she has to put up with my ass constantly, and I'm okay to say that. But this movie comes from the idea of two artists who are married to two artists, and that look of when someone's sick is what PTA said of Maya Rudolph taking care of him, which is interesting, because from our perspective, that could be a sweet look, but in all actuality, it could have been the other way around, where it's like, oh, if you went away, that might be okay. Like, like I don't have to deal with you anymore. So it's in the eye of the beholder. And then they sort of created this film together. And that's what's so great about this. This isn't a creation just of PTA. This is also a creation of Daniel Day-Lewis. He really should have a screenplay or story credit to this whole thing, because they are the ones that crafted this film, but they also crafted it based off, it feels like a lot of like Rebecca Miller and Maya Rudolph's feelings and experiences of dealing with these two very controlling and dynamic artists of their time.
Right. And I'll be honest, you've got me in a little bit of an existential tailspin right now, because I am sick and my wife left town while I was sick.
I think you're screwed. So, don't eat anything in the fridge, Jay.
Oh boy.
But I mean, the power dynamics of this movie are absolutely extraordinary. And it is that tug and pull between him and Alma from the beginning, when you are there at the restaurant and she's taking his order. And then of course their date, every little aspect of this movie, there's a tug and pull. There's a tug and pull between him and Cyril, and how that they've had this long-standing relationship, and obviously as brother and sister, but as professional partners in building this empire. And you can see that who really runs the show. There's a face to it, but who really runs the House of Woodcock?
Who is the master?
There you go. And so, but this movie, I remember sitting shortly after at a dinner with some friends of ours, and I was just talking about this movie, I think for like 30 minutes straight, kind of like how we've done today so far at the beginning of it. And I remember
30 minutes straight.
Yeah, it was.
Ryan, we're on here for like way longer than that every time. But the thing is, we only talk about the movie for like 30 minutes. So
I was going to say, this is going to have a lot of tangents.
But I just remember sitting there, and my friend's wife, she told me, she was just like, I think you need to start writing again. I think that something in this movie, whatever this movie is. And then they went and saw it. They're like, I get it. Because, they saw a lot of films like we, it wasn't like, you have your friends that go and see movies like this, as opposed to be like, yeah, I'm just going to go see the Transformers movies or whatever that fucking comes out. And they were like, no, you seem very passionate about this. And it was for a while, I felt like I felt like you couldn't have the permission. But a movie like this, a movie like There Will Be Blood, sort of kind of opened things up. This guy has always, Paul Thomas Anderson's always been there as sort of as the key to open up different chapters. And I think with There Will Be Blood, he opened up more of my film appreciation. With Phantom Thread, much like you, Sophia, he opened up the possibility of being able to want to write about this stuff, get engaged again with it, 10 years later. And because, you go through college and different things in life, and you just kind of want to start talking about it. Such an important film, but then also it's fucking hilarious. I've got lines of dialogue that I just wrote down, because when I did the rewatch, I watched it one night and then I rewatched it again the next morning.
Problem with just rattling off some dialogue is that
it's boring.
Humor comes from the delivery.
I know, but to me, I mean, just from the opening kind of conversation that Alma has with the doctor, and she's describing, how much she gives herself over to him, every piece of me. From that moment, I was like, what the fuck is this movie? And the trailer, if you ever saw the original trailer when it came out, which Sophia actually has it on a loop in her apartment in New York.
I was obsessed with this trailer too. I keep saying that about this movie, but the trailer is such a good trailer.
It played
the Johnny
it like
Greenwood score.
Played it like a horror movie.
Listen, though, I'm so haunted by the trailer because PTA does this and it drives me mad. He puts things in his trailers that do not wind up in the final cut of the movie.
Hell yeah.
So there's this shot of Daniel Day-Lewis as Reynolds sitting in a church, I don't know what that is, and I never will. And that is
Isn't that
so
now a literal legal liability after the
I
Anadarmus
think
thing?
I
Well,
think so.
no, they threw out that
Oh, they
case.
did?
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
that's good.
Okay.
For
That's
everyone
good.
out there,
Good.
there was a case about lying to the
It was
audience.
yesterday, wasn't
It
it?
was for the movie Yesterday from Danny Boyle.
She was originally playing John Lennon.
Yeah, she was she was going to be McCartney. Weirdly enough. Yeah.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
me, Anadarmus.
It's me, Adamus. Have you
Hey.
seen Blonde?
The Bob Dylan voice is back.
There you go.
No,
The
this is
Bob Dylan voice.
Liverpool.
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 Yeah, it's a little bit
It's
different.
This
not
is
close
more
to
of a
the Dylan
Dylan.
one.
This is
Here's
Dylan.
Dylan.
Yeah. This is more
I
The
can't wait for the
Beatles.
Reynolds voice if you can do that later on.
appropriate.
Oh, it's very specific.
Yeah, that's
It
very
is.
specific. It's almost like
Mhm.
also too. This is the most like weirdly normal probably Daniel Day-Lewis has been in the last 30 years in a role because he goes all method. So like it's just like probably the most normal he was on set.
Well, I'm glad you asked.
Okay, here we
As
go.
the Daniel Day-Lewis resident expert, he's my favorite actor of all time. And I think that I don't know if I would say this is like the most normal, but what it does is it goes to Daniel Day-Lewis as a handsome, romantic individual. That does not, that's an area that had not been, I think, accessed for a very long time because he'd been playing these
Yeah.
caricatures and like
He doesn't have
Abraham,
a- he doesn't
have a
Abraham
bit.
Lincoln.
Yeah,
Right.
he's not
There's
like
no shtick.
he's got no
Right.
glass eye or he's not
Yeah.
fucking got Lincoln's hat on at dinner.
Mhm,
You know what I mean?
mhm.
Like he's Age
Or
of
Yeah.
Innocence
evolving
era
into
kind of, right?
madness.
It's
Or
yeah,
anything.
it's an Age of Innocence style, I think too, and
Yeah.
the restraint and the quiet violence that exists. I actually think that even though Scorsese, he says The Age of Innocence is the most violent film I've ever made, all of that. This is far more violent, I think, in its emotions.
They're both very violent. Yeah. It's just
Mhm,
the looks
mhm.
and the scowls.
It's the looks, yeah. But I think what about Daniel Day-Lewis that I love in this movie is that I mean, people mention all the time transformations when they're describing great performances and talking about actors, but to me, he's actually the only actor, period, who can truly achieve this. He is never the same. And I think this was probably first evident to audiences when he did My Beautiful Laundrette in a Room with a View in the same year, just completely different. He's such a chameleon. But I think what is so great about this role for him is that he it's such a weird, specific rendering of a creative person in that I think that there are chances and opportunities for him to play with more subtlety that you don't necessarily appreciate in his bigger, louder roles. Now, I don't think this is his defining performance or role, but it might be for me as his last one. But I think that one of the other things about him is that, fashion designers, when you think of them, they're these guys like Balenciaga and Dior, they were known to be some of the most obsessive artists who also had really dramatic relationships with their clients. And actors are similar by trade and by nature. And I think that Daniel Day-Lewis was able to really access this. And he actually apprenticed under the New York City ballet costume designer Mark Happel for a year. He pinned fabrics, he cut costumes, he stitched, took dancers' measurements, he embroidered costumes. So he continued right to go there and to get into it, but
Yeah. He normally cuts so many corners getting ready for a role. I'm surprised
he went there for this one. It was really just this. But I think right the voice here is so odd to me
Yeah.
because I remember when I first heard the voice too, and having seen everything that Daniel Day-Lewis has ever been in, I was really struck by it because it doesn't sound too different from his regular speaking voice. He was, born and grew up in London. His father was poet laureate. He has this kind of posh English background, but what he does here when he plays with his accent, he goes into those posh tendencies, right, of someone who went to a boarding school or who grew up in a certain environment in England. But he also, the way that this movie addresses and plays with class, I would love to talk about at a point down the road in the conversation because I think it's fascinating. But he does that in his voice. He has little moments in the accent that I think Brits will pick up on, or people who have watched too much British television or talked to too many British people will notice. And I think he's incredible at also, this kind of like he's this really handsome man who has these really masculine qualities, but he also has these effeminate qualities as well, like in his voice and in the way that he cares about his appearance and he cares about the clothing and everything
I mean,
is
he's
so
making
much about the
dresses.
outer, right? Yeah.
But yes, but I think
And yeah.
to your point, Sophia, like the beginning of the film, which is like just sucks you right into it.
Mm-hmm.
The
Yeah.
way that he's aggressively combing his hair with that brush or
Mm-hmm.
delicately putting on those pink socks. Um,
Made by the fashion designer who makes socks for the Pope.
there you go. But just like the way it's very mannered, the way he's putting it on.
Mm-hmm.
But you mentioned his voice, like there's different ways he speaks to, I think, everyone in the film. Like when he's very soft spoken to the ladies that make the dresses with him, his staff. Then, of course, I think it's a little bit higher up or a little bit more bass when he's at breakfast later on with Cyril and Joanna. But then when he's with Henrietta Harding and he's talking with her and it's very soft again. It's very delicate. Like that's when he's in a performance. And obviously it's the same later when he's with the princess and he's talking to her and it's very soft and it's almost it's like delicate fabric in
Mm-hmm.
that moment. But then also when he's with Barbara Rose later, because he's one fucking irritated that he has to be in a room with her. Two, it's also being forced to do it because Sarah, tells him like she pays for this house and make her the goddamn dress and go to the damn reception. There's the hint of his annoyance that usually comes out when his process is being disturbed. And which is, something that is, again, that's against his normal grain, right? But then there's still the soft spokenness there too. But there's a hint of seriousness that falls there. But then there's a blend of it when he's around Alma when it's just the two of them. So I agree with you there. But like, yeah, at the beginning, it tells you so much about the House of Woodcock, right? Which is, again,
A hilarious name.
Thank you.
He's the best at
he's the
best at making
master
names.
of making names. Reynolds Woodcock, just perfect. But I mean, Cyril's one of the most fascinating characters you're ever going to get, and she probably has like 25 minutes of screen time, maybe in this movie at all. This 2-hour movie, 30 minutes, maybe tops. But from the beginning, you can tell this place runs like a clock. It's all this time they're going to come in. It's all regimented. It's all routine. It's all been designed like that because that's how he operates. And it even comes down to his relationships. That's why when he comes to dinner after the dress has been delivered to Henrietta Harding and everything, and Cyril, and he's there and Cyril's already waiting for him. Cyril's already got the plan on how to get rid of Joanna. And it's like, I'll give her the October dress.
Brutal.
And then she's out the door and gone. And then when they're measuring Alma later, you're just like, you're the perfect frame because I've seen this before. He likes a little belly on them. And then she just writes the name down. It doesn't even have to be a last name. And it feels like she's got a book of these of all these different people's measurements and she doesn't have to write down what those measurements are. She knows them verbatim, exactly number to number, what they all mean. And that could also just be experience of doing the business, but then also experience of knowing him. She probably doesn't even need to write down the measurements because she's exactly the kind of frame she is. But Cyril is such a interesting character because she really is the muscle and also the brains behind it. Because when he's sick later on, how she's like, let me put it another way. You're going to work all night here because this needs to be on the train to Belgium tomorrow. So figure it out. Make the phone calls in my office. It's very nice, but get the shit done. And there's no bullshit with her. And I absolutely love her because on the opposite side, you have her brother. You're talking about his masculine, but then his feminine qualities. I mean, the fact that he don't look so tough, You're always so tough. Alma always talks about how he's trying to act so tough, but he's not. He's broken inside. And then a lot of that is the foreshadowing of losing his mother, who taught him his trade. But then I always loved Cyril at the dinner at the restaurant when he's talking about.
She sits like the Godfather.
Yeah, she's like.
I love Cyril. I am a Cyril in my life.
She's just sitting there, just like looking at him as he's talking about their dead mother and ghosts, and I don't think the dead, I don't think it's spooky at all. And she's just kind of like, all right, why don't you just go to the countryside and kind of shut the fuck up? Like, you know what I mean? Like, and I'll follow behind tomorrow. You need to go figure some stuff out, dude. Like, and that means that she's going to take care of everything at the house and everything. And so she's obviously the one that's then runs this. And then by the film, as the film is building and building and building, you see Alma really not have to earn the respect or love from Reynolds as much as she needs to really learn that and get that from Cyril first in order to be fully accepted. And I don't think any of the other women ever figured that out. Probably over the years, they're so after his attention that they didn't ever think about, well, the real relationship here that I have to kind of penetrate is actually his with Cyril, because there's those breakfasts where Joanna talks about the stodgy things or where have you gone, Reynolds? But the first face that we see is Cyril's face, that close up, right, of her with that sort of like Leslie Manville frown. But then later we see that at a different breakfast, and we see that frown turn into a smile when her and Alma are looking apart from one, across the table from each other right before the Barbaros news. And I just think that that's like, those are small little moments of recognition when she kicks the doctor out, right before they go and fix the dress or whatever. It's those little moments too, where it's like, okay, I respect you. I've never respected any of these other women because they never got this. They never figured that this is important, not just his fawning, his affection. And that's what I just think that about Alma and Vicky Krieps' performance. It's all those little things, the more and more you see it over time, that make that performance so goddamn good. And what a discovery that this movie presents is that, like PTA is notorious for finding actors or us discovering these performers, but really Vicky Krieps is the heart and soul of this whole thing. Like, yeah, we can talk about Daniel Day-Lewis and Leslie Manville and PTA, but like that performance, I remember seeing and be like, who the fuck is this? Because she's going toe to toe with one of the greatest actors ever in his final performance, and she's completely stealing the show from him.
If I can back up a little bit and kind of equate Cyril's relationship to Reynolds in this movie, it reminds me of a movie from last year. Some people might say Reynolds is the showman and Cyril is the snowman. A little bit of an Elvis Colonel Parker situation going on there in the background, manipulating him in ways that he doesn't even understand at all. And I think she should have done the Tom Hanks Colonel Parker accent, if I'm being honest.
Oh my God, imagine Leslie doing that.
Man, you know what movie just absolutely rocks the house? Freaking Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris. Oh my God.
You mean Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris?
Oh, it's Mrs. Harris and I'm going to Paris. Some people might say this is just a warm up for Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris.
50s fashion house.
Yes.
That
Phantom Thread walked so Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris could run.
Exactly.
And that's really what we need to talk about most here. No, it is. I mean, going to Vicky Krieps. This is one of those performances where you're like, oh, okay, so she's going to be like a huge star for many, many years to come. And of course, it didn't really happen because that's rarely how this stuff actually works out. But old rocks, so at least we got that out of it. But I mean, you are right, Ryan. It's not even that she has such like a subtle hold over Reynolds, who clearly, with his relationship with Cyril, Reynolds is able to be manipulated in some ways.
Pretty over time, easily, actually.
Cyril has really honed in on that, and Alma is trying to figure out how to do that. But really, the biggest opposition to manipulating Reynolds is Cyril in this situation, because Alma she has nothing but good intentions, at least at first, just kind of being exposed to this world that she never imagined she would be exposed to is enough to get her by at first. And then having what she feels like seems to be this unconditional affection from another man, but eventually he does get pulled away to what he feels is his passion, or maybe just what Cyril has convinced him is his true passion, in this dressmaking. And she starts to feel slighted, and she starts to try and think of ways to get that feeling back that they had at the beginning when he was ordering this robust breakfast, just so that he could keep her around a little bit longer. And one of the things that immediately attracted him to her was her being good at her job and being able to remember the order, which I like a lot. I love it when people are good at their jobs on screen. And this is about that. Although, I mean, we should talk. So, Sophia, you hinted at, is Reynolds actually good at his job?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. And then I do want to talk about Vicky, but I think with Reynolds being good at his job, I don't think he's good at his job anymore. I think he's a good craftsman, but I don't think he understands the business, and he doesn't have an interest in moving forward in time. Right. And that's like a key line that he says near the end of the film to Alma when he's asking her to marry him, as he says, a house that doesn't change is a dead house. And so much of this, right, is this ghost story. It is very gothic in so many ways in the movie. But I think one of the key things is that I think a lot of these dresses are purposefully dated, right? They're very, very English. They're not Balenciaga. They're not Dior. They have these traces of the English monarchy and aristocracy in them that is something that exists in another period in time.
See, this
50s
you're speaking
fashion.
my language here. This is
I'm sure you think
I
about this
noticed
all
all
the
of this
time.
first watch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're just like, there's so many corsets. The dresses are so restrictive. They hold everything in, and where history is going, and even English history, which is more mannered, it's moving out of that. And he doesn't understand that. And in the end, right, when he goes back at Cyril and he's like, where has Henrietta Harding been? And she's like, I didn't want to tell you because I don't really care. I don't want to hear this from you. And he, of course, brings up chic. He can't deal with someone
Yeah.
wanting something that's chic. His clothing is not chic. It's not. It's dated. The fabrics are jewel tones usually. They fit in very particular ways that are of another period in time. And Alma, in many ways, she represents this change when she's near the end of the film looking into her future, right, and thinking about what could be. She's the one who's pinning. She's the one who puts the belt on Mrs. Vaughn near the end. She has her lipstick back on. She's that way that he can move into the future, and he's so resistant to that. And I also think the wedding dresses, he's right. It's ugly. The bride in that scene when she comes in and he's like, "Are you a gold or a silver person? Do you like lace or pearl?" This wedding dress has pearls all over it, even though she says lace. The the dress in the front, it's crazy. Like the boobs are way pushed up, but there's like a weird like satin thing underneath and just full lace. It's not great.
Mm.
And I think
Ryan,
he's
she's seen this movie so many times.
I know I agree with her because I mean, there's two hints of this. There's two
Yeah.
hints of this of when Henrietta Harding, you can take of what she says when they're sitting there on the bench after Let's Take It for a Stroll, which is an elegant piece of music, that like the piano, which is very piano forward for Johnny Greenwood here, which is great. But all that we've been through together could hint at something that's happened to her, and all the and obviously there is. It's that she's had some tragedy happen in her life, but I think they've also been working a lot at trying to get this fucking dress right. And it's been driving both of them kind of nuts, because this is the last thing that she works before, when you're talking about that scene where, that filthy little word chic, and right, and then he blames sort of Alma for Harding leaving.
Mm-hmm.
There's a hint of also there's a quiet pause that Cyril has of the arrival of a house that is in their area that if you want to go to them, that's where you go for the newer styles, the new person on the block. But then if you look at what Alma's making, her dress, like, that's when she's at the top of the stairs, are the things that she notices. The fabric you mentioned, the idea of having pockets in this dress, the idea of making it look something that's accessible but also elegant. Like,
Mm-hmm.
her stuff looks great. Even like, I think even the photo of her, like that pink dress that she has in the photo shoot, that's actually the only dress that you see made by him that actually looks like there's a lot of, I think, effort and real elegance to it, because she's inspiring him at that moment. But the other stuff, like
Mm-hmm.
when you're talking, like there's the fashion show, right? That is very Mrs. Eris Goes to Paris, right? That's where we would kind of all know. Where
It's literally the same.
it's literally the same thing. But those dresses are so elegant and beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And these are very much like, and it's all put together. You could see him in the back putting it all together. But yes, I agree with you, Sophia. Like, they're like, that's what you make? Like,
It's
that's even Barbara Rose's dress to a certain extent. It's like,
mm-hmm.
you're puffing up this thing in the front, and it's so, she has to everybody has to remain so still, and you know what I mean? There's
She's
no
looking like
flexibility.
Margot Robbie in that one movie. What was that one?
Which one?
The big period piece.
In
I believe
Babylon?
it was Saoirse Ronan was in it
Mary
as well.
Queen of Scots.
Mary Queen of Scots.
She's looking like she's in Mary Queen of Scots.
But I mean, like, Alma's dress at the reception, at the wedding reception, that's much more a dress of that era as well. Like, the way Alma dresses at these places is much more of that style. And he's so stubborn that he won't move into it until the end with the flash forward, where she's the one that takes control of the House of Woodcock and essentially moves them into the next era.
So, Sophia, did you have all of this knowledge before you saw this movie, or did this movie make you want to do some sort of deep dive into British fashion history?
It was a mix of both. I've always been really interested in fashion and in the history of it. But that was something I clocked right away when I was watching it, because the other thing, Ryan brought up that line when she says, after everything we've been through, that's also a reference to the war. So this is right immediately post World War II, when things have, started to settle a bit, and London, of course, like went through so much as a city at that time. And he's very much, I think, a pre-war relic, and pre-war fashion. I also just love history. Pre-war fashion was very different from what comes post-war in terms of the trends. So yeah, I think definitely read more after it came out. But one of the things that I really love about this movie is how important weddings are, and specifically wedding dresses. So we see multiple iterations of wedding dresses throughout the movie, and how important they are, right, to Reynolds as a character. And the very first wedding dress that we see is in one of my favorite scenes in the movie that introduces the idea of superstition. I'm going to jump forward a smidge, but I do want to go back and talk about the breakfast scene.
We're going back.
I'm just sitting back. I'm turning my mic off.
Jay,
let her. I'm letting her cook. I'm having a ball over here.
Great. Well, so when they're on the first date and they go to dinner, the idea of Reynolds being a man with mom issues is so spot on perfect and hysterical. It's so funny the way that he is so creepy and weird and asking her about her mother.
She's in the
carry a photo of her.
She's in the canvas.
She's in the canvas. I always carry her with you. Always carry her with you.
And you're like,
it is so, and you can tell in Alma's face. She's like, who is this man? What is he doing? When he's like, does your mother have brown eyes? All of that. And then when they end up leaving and they go back to the country house, he tells this great story when the light goes on, this photo of his mother in her wedding dress. after her second marriage. And he talks about the evil Miss Blackwood, right, their nanny, and all of these superstitions around creating wedding dresses. And it gives you this idea of, right, like the importance and the meaning behind a wedding dress, but these, as he says, endless superstitions that are tied to them, women not wanting to touch them because they think they'll marry bald men, or the fact that Cyril helped him finish the dress, and that's the beginning of their professional partnership, is making this wedding dress for their mother, and how Cyril never ended up getting married. It really makes it feel like this fairy tale or like this ghost story. And at the end, Alma has that line about how she's going to take care of the House of Woodcock for him, and she's going to protect his dresses from ghosts and ash and time. And what does Reynolds say when she asks, "Where's the dress now? Where is this wedding dress that you made?" He's like, "Oh, it's probably turned to ash somewhere." And it's kind of sad, because these dresses, it makes you think like they're really just garments that are somewhat meaningless without the body to wear them. And that's really, I think, the first iteration that we start to think about weddings, and we start to think about marriage. And it really introduces their power play too, of him saying, "I'm a confirmed bachelor. Being married would make me deceitful, and I don't ever want that." It's just like, what are you talking about? It's not making any sense. But again, he's tied to this like very old Gothic way of thinking. And what PTA does that's so interesting at the end of that scene when they're sitting by the fire is that he keeps the camera behind Reynolds. Reynolds stands up as like this power play over Alma, almost like when he's getting uncomfortable with the way that he's questioning her, or she's questioning him. Like, "I hope you're not strong for me." And PTA keeps the camera behind Reynolds as he's standing up so you can see him, but he puts it eye level with Alma. So it's like she's our girl. Like, we're following her. This is essentially her story. She's the one that started it in this very gothic fashion by talking to this unseen man who we later find out is Dr. Hardy. And in saying, like, this is, yeah, this is my story. Like, it might be a Daniel Day-Lewis movie. It might be about this fashion designer, but really it's about change and time, and taking apart those structures and ideas that you're familiar with at first. So yeah, I love that
Ryan,
scene.
it's like watching Michael Jordan in the gym right now. I mean, we're seeing it's like watching Lionel Messi on the pitch right now.
I'm telling you.
Sophia has found her purpose.
Remember when Jordan was trying
Oh,
to prepare to come back, and
this is Tim Cook, or not Tim Cook. It's Steve Jobs pitching the iPhone right here.
yeah, and he like, because he was like, Michael Jordan was making Space Jam, and he had to like build a basketball, and he kept bringing all these people to come and play with him, but he was cooking. He cooked them all during the summer. Yeah, that's what Sophia's doing right now. She's cooking us all.
I'm cooking an omelet in
Speaking
a
of
dinner
cooking,
that wasn't asked for.
I gotta say, I'm a big softie and a big fiend for food in a movie. And this movie that's the other thing that I love, because I love to cook, and this movie's relationship with food, a dangerous relationship with food at times, is so goddamn fascinating, because food ultimately is the way in which this settles Reynolds down, but it's also what connects them by the end, but it's also what initially connects them. This giant breakfast being this metaphor for his hunger, his appetite of his work, right? And also of his inspiration, and how little moments can, because he's such a thin man, he's got such a frail frame, right? So when he first sees her just doing her job, something that he doesn't fucking know how to do anymore, just doing her job, and she stumbles, and because she's,
I love the stumble and how her face flushes. It's
her
so
very,
cute.
very pink, almost like a raspberry look, right?
Not strawberry though.
Not strawberry though, raspberry. And then, I mean, the power plays start from that initial conversation, because it's, from the taking of the order to then, I mean, the ultimate move. And this is when I knew this movie was just going to be like my thing. Will you remember it? Takes it from her. I'm keeping this. And the way she presents it all to him, how she lays everything down perfectly. She pours the tea from high up, which is like her thing to do. It's also the little things, right? Of like when you're in a relationship with somebody, and the little thing that when you first met them, and it's quirky, it's cute, but then ultimately later on down the road when you're pissed off at them and they do that shit, you're like, you fucking pour that tea like that ever, or that water jug like that from the topic, I'm gonna fucking lose it. And so I love those little hints in there as well. But then the way she kind of just like slides the tea pot to the side, and then she's like, anything else? And he's just like kind of blown away by her and goes, will you have dinner with me? Like, fuck it. Like, I've been thinking this whole time as this meal is being prepared and she's just like, yeah. And she doesn't slide him a number or anything. She just slides her a name and everything. And I'm sure they kind of figure it out from there. But and
then what do we get? Some of those awesome driving shots. The driving shots.
Oh my God. The
driving shots.
Then the fogginess and the sort of just the morning dew over the town.
It's very much a like literary, cinematic, idyllic.
Having the guy come out, check the tires, check the gas, check the car and everything while he goes down the street to eat and everything, like he's done it a million times. Knows the guy's name by heart and everything.
Mr. Hansford.
Yes. I mean, it's just I mean, Sophia knows the whole breakfast order by heart.
Oh my God. Yes, I do.
Yeah.
I do. Is that you asking me to read it?
I mean, if I want it, I need to see this.
Jay's never seen this. I've seen this this a couple of times.
Jordan's going between the legs, going in for the dunk.
I mean,
okay.
What would you like to order?
Okay, so he says a Welsh rarebit, but it's like between a rarebit and a rabbit. So you can colloquially call it a rabbit. But if you hear his accent, it's just like a little. You hear the R a tiny bit. It's his very posh English accent.
We've texted about that before. I'm like, it's rabbit, and you're like, no, it's both.
Rarebit.
And then I've listened to it. I'm like, yeah, it's actually both.
It's rarebit, yeah. With a poached egg on top, please, not too runny, and bacon, scones. And the way he says scones is interesting because it's scones, which is not a posh way to say scone. No. British people who are more posh will say scone, but he says scones. Butter, cream, jam, not strawberry. That's when she confirms raspberry.
Raspberry?
And then he asks, do you have lapsang? Which is a very strong tea. I don't know if you guys have ever had lapsang before, but it's kind of an odd breakfast tea choice, in my opinion.
Pot of lapsang, please.
But then he says a pot of lapsang and some sausages. Which is the best line, which he added, of course.
And some sausage. And her reaction, and some sausages.
And some sausages. So good.
But it's also like, she's like, whoa.
I feel like I want to applaud just like I did at the end of this movie. This is what we are experiencing today is something I've never experienced on a podcast before. This is impressive. And it is
a domination.
I'll tell you one thing I do like about this movie. Sophia, you mentioned how really this is Alma's movie. There's that criticism that people will often bring up about like, oh, Indiana Jones actually isn't good because the movie wouldn't have been any different if Indiana Jones wasn't in the movie. I actually think that's an interesting way to frame a movie. And Reynolds isn't a completely inactive character, but I would say he's mostly reactive, being molded by the events around him. Mm-hmm. And I think of that mostly when, he would never have gone into that lady's room after she gets wasted and passes out in the bed in the dress and be like, I demand that you give me this dress. And that is one of those times where he slips. He's like, he that performance that he's so in tune with, he loses it because Alma inspires him to act a little less rationally and kind of break that performance for just a little bit. And that scene is amazing. But Reynolds is, as much as he gives off this aura of this like ultimate controlling auteur, really there is this softness underneath that can be manipulated, which is really kind of the battle that we have is a little bit of the Cyril versus Alma thing. And ultimately, what does he do? He tries to force himself into being controlled at the end of this film by making himself deathly ill on a fairly regular basis in order to be babied, which obviously speaks to those mother issues. And
Mm-hmm.
it's just, it is one of my favorite endings of a movie in recent
Oh.
years. And it is such a great little kind of bow on his whole
Mm-hmm.
arc, all of the issues that have been plaguing him personally and professionally, and just that ability to maybe not only be able to accept affection and care from somebody else, but also
Mm-hmm.
just like maybe a little bit of an acknowledgement of, you know what, I'm not as good at this as I used to be. So I'm going to completely force myself to not even be able to do it for a little bit because I have an insecurity about my status in my industry at this point. So,
Well,
I
and
mean,
there's something that Ryan and I talked about recently because we were both sick at different times and how
roughly
it's
around the
real
same time.
around the same time. It's really hard being sick because you can't do anything. Like, and if you're so used
I
to
fucking hate it.
running at a certain tempo and working in a certain way, you can't do anything anymore, and that kind of takes you out. But at the same time, it's the only way to take you out and to take you away from the
mhm.
overworking. And there's something about that the fashion show scene where we see him crack under pressure, and we see, I think, that real, right, the idea that you guys are bringing up of this like inner and outer life of a creative, or this idea of performance, and how for people that can take a lot out of you. It can be really draining. And for Reynolds in that moment at the fashion show, one, Daniel Day-Lewis has an all-time great nose, and I love it, but we get this great shot of him looking out that
They're the
um,
people. Yeah,
peephole,
yeah.
which is an exact replica of the shot in Psycho of Norman Bates doing the same thing. So again, mommy issues there.
Yep.
But then immediately following that, we get the line about Alma to Dr. Hardy saying, and then he's a baby, a spoiled little baby. And that's when we first get that introduction of the doctor and then to the sickness. And what's so funny is that when Alma describes Reynolds as well again, she's like, and then he's well again, a couple days, then he's well again. And the immediate following scene is the dissolve to the country house, and then him being so mean to her when she brings the tea in,
It's
and we get
one of
the
my favorite
best
scenes.
line, one of the best lines, right? I think Ryan, you love this one too. The tea, the tea is going, but the interruption, right? The interruption staying right here with me.
It's staying
Um,
right here with me. Like
which is so true. Like that
so
is
like
something that happens.
I love my wife to
Um,
death, but that happens weekly. I feel like it
yeah.
happens weekly
The bubble has been popped.
when you're like
Yeah.
when you're like writing or you're recording or you're editing. I'm editing something or whatnot, and I'm like, I didn't ask for this. Like, who asked for this? Like, it
Mhm.
happens. But but of course, it's not even just what he's saying. He's just like, but I'm taking it out. It's like you don't
Yeah.
need Alma. You're like, yeah, but also he's being a complete asshole. Like, I mean, it goes back
Yeah.
to earlier when she's just buttering toast, and that's my
But
other
it is
favorite.
really loud.
It is really loud, but also like it's like you just rode a horse through here. Like it's so exaggerated,
Hmm.
but but of course because it is exaggerated because he's so dramatic. He's overly dramatic to her, and her just response is, I just think he's being too fussy,
Hmm.
and
Yeah. And you get the sense that no other woman has ever talked to him in that way. Like if you think of how Joanna talks to him at the beginning, it's so like, where have
soft.
you gone?
It's
What did
very
I do?
dreamlike. It's very
And
delicate
almost like,
again.
maybe I like my own taste.
Yeah, maybe you're being too fussy. Maybe that's your dress. She's wearing
Yeah.
your dress. She should respect your work. How about you stop,
Hmm.
and I love that right before they go and take off the dress from Barbara Rose. And no, hang on. Sorry about that. Yeah, I always love when right before they take the dress off of Barbara Rose, and almost visceral angry reaction to how Barbara's just used and abused this dress over the night. And he's just like telling her, don't fuss. Like, it's just, don't make a scene, like whatever. Like I've had to deal with this shit before with Barbara Rose probably or others. And she's like, no, it's your fucking work. Like take some pride in it, dude. And then he's just like, you know what? Fuck it. And like, come on. And then they go and get the dress. And I always love the reaction shot where he's just hanging his arm on the door, and Cal walks by and he goes, Mr. Woodcock, Cal, and you see Cal just like bolt to try to get
scurries away.
He's like, I'm getting the fuck out of here. I see that face. I'm out of here. Like it's but then also his reactions during the press conference with Barbara Rose, how he's still sulking in the background, won't look at the cameras, won't look at her, but almost looking dead on, like tired of this shit already. But he is just like, I don't want to do this. Why did Cyril tell me this? It's so upsetting. It's so unsettling. Just like, why do I have to be here?
When he's sick, he's allowed to be a petulant child.
Yes, and he's so vulnerable. Like he is as frail as the dresses he's making. He's just kind of like shriveled up, and her face is like elated. That first when she's driving him, and she gets it, and then she's bringing in the tea and everything. Like she's so happy that he is almost on the verge of death. Like that is the
understandable,
portrait,
right?
I mean, understandable for her, understandable for anybody in that position, being like, you're almost dead, and you're also quiet because you finally shut the fuck up and stop being such a monster. Like it's great.
Do you think he was just like, I mean, it is the one of the universe's great truths is that men are awful at being sick. Do you think he just has like a tummy ache? That's how I would act if I had a tummy ache.
Oh, yeah. That's actually a really good point. You know,
exhaustion too. I mean, like it's just like, you can get exhaustion sickness. Or Jay, you're just being yourself.
Well, no, but like how men are terrible with being sick, it's true. And like the pain
to the extreme
compared to women.
Yeah.
Like what we can do.
No, it is so true.
Yeah, it is.
If I have a head cold, I am on my deathbed.
Yeah, I have an itchy throat. Like I'm out for a week.
Well,
my wife's
like
I'm just gonna go to work. Shut up. Let me like.
One of the funnier lines at the end of the movie is when she says, "You're not going to, or you might wish you're going to die, but you're not going to die." Right? That like pain threshold. I also, though, with Barbara Rose in that scene, when you're talking about like him being a baby and her being really angry, I do think it's so funny how angry she is at this whole thing and how seriously she takes the House of Woodcock. That line, "It's no business of ours what Miss Rose decides to do with her life, but she will no longer behave like this in a dress by the House of," and the way she says Woodcock is so funny. And it's just like they're so serious. It's like they really have found each other, but the humor is just, it's, for me, that seriousness cranks it up to an 11.
That also,
and the dinner scene's the same way, right?
Yeah. No, the wistfulness also too of like this is what kind of turns them on.
Yes.
It's like taking a dress, from Rose and like kissing in the streets. Like it's the most romantic moments. Like that's romantic. Or like at the dinner, right. One of my favorite other lines where it's the two girls walk up and they say, I've loved your dresses she said, this is also another telling thing. She wants to be buried in one of your dresses, which like your dresses are for people that are gonna die or old fucking people. And then Cyril's like, thank you. And his reaction to like his manager, I guess, or whatever, where he's like, you'd dig the dress up and sell it again, wouldn't you, Nigel? And he goes, well, it would be an awful waste if I didn't. But that's so
love Nigel.
Yeah, love Nigel. Just like showing up in two scenes. One that scene, and then one when they're getting married to make sure that the money is all good and probably a prenup's involved. But then like, as they're talking there and she's kind of there at the dinner, she's like, you have enough to eat? You seem thirsty. And he's like,
so good.
The way the edit and cuts to him driving so frivolously to get them home into his room, and the little tug that he has to her, and she kind of like jumps up when they go into his bedroom, but is almost very similar to the tug they have at the New Year's scene where he's going to tug her to then obviously get her on the dance floor that we see later, but there's a resistance by that point. But he grabs her along the way, and they make their way off the camera, and then of course like the New Year's shot, which is incredible. And sort of how time is backwards for them in that moment. It's wonderful. But yeah, I mean, yeah, it's great. And then I mean the whole sickness, the idea of the mushrooms and then putting it in the tea. But then also too her sort of giddiness, right? His over exaggeration, like I feel like I'm dying, or not. I'm like I feel like I feel like, and she's like, her dialogue, I forgot what it is, but it's like yeah, you'll be okay. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, you're fine. Just shut up. You know. And I think about anytime I see Maya Rudolph or Rebecca Miller, I think I swear to God, I think of this movie, and I think of just how these are two extraordinarily talented women in their own profession. Maya Rudolph being one of the funniest people alive, and Rebecca Miller, a very, very skilled, talented writer-director, and having to put up with these egomaniacal maniacs that are their husbands, and how self-aware those two men are to create these vessels for their own lives here, because there's shades of both of them. You can see that some things are very PTA, some things are very Daniel Day-Lewis. I think the being too fussy, and the dinner scene that we haven't even talked about yet, but the dinner scene, the romantic gesture of the dinner scene, that feels very Daniel Day-Lewis. That feels very much like, I have my routine, I'm in my character, and
where's Cyril?
Where's Cyril? Twice. And he's like, she's like, oh, we're having dinner. Where's Cyril? When is she coming back? Breaking his routine. And then the line of, I know of about, I'm just admiring my own gallantry at eating this. It's
so good.
So good. And everything.
Maya Rudolph is the Reynolds Woodcock of comedy.
She is. Like, she was on SNL, I believe, last night.
She's profoundly talented, and she keeps trying to bring back like variety shows, and it's never going to happen.
It's never going to happen. But also, like, let her do it. She's amazing. Well, that's the problem.
So funny.
No, she's done it, and then you watch a variety show, and you're like, oh yeah, this just doesn't work anymore. I don't know how to explain it, but you go back and you watch. But Carol Burnett. She's trying to be Carol Burnett, is what she's trying to do.
Mm.
Yeah, I think because she's so talented, Jay. Right? It's hard to kind of put her in vehicles or put her in things like it. She's just so goddamn talented. Like, SNL was such a perfect place for her, because she could do a 3-4 minute sketch and then she could disappear, and like, she's the greatest thing probably about that week's episode. And now she's in his films. Like, we talked about her in Inherent Vice, and
she's great in Licorice Pizza. Her little moment.
I would really be interested to see if like he gave her a full big role rather than just kind of like cameos, because
she kind of seems to be all right, just chilling a little bit.
But I think
I kind of wonder if she would want that.
But also, all the collaborative process between the two of them. I mean, maybe she's kind of in the Mike Myers zone of like, people don't really love my thing, so I'm just gonna hang. Yeah, that's
I've been watching a lot of Mike Myers movies lately.
What do you think of The Love Guru, Jay?
Oh boy, if I made that movie, I would go into hiding as well.
What if Daniel Day-Lewis voiced Shrek?
Oh my
God!
Oh,
donkey!
Oh, I think it would be more Bill the Butcher.
Oh yeah, I could see that.
You watch Mike Myers movies, and you realize he's been doing the Shrek voice for like 30 years. That was his
Axe Murderer.
That was his Rosebud.
Yeah.
Shrek.
And then it did it in like Austin Powers, right? With like Fat Bastard.
Fat Bastard. He has a for some reason in So I Married an Axe Murderer, he plays a father character who for no reason whatsoever has a Scottish accent.
Well, his father in real life was Scottish. So
and then in that movie, he just has an aside, like I assume improvised bit where the Scottish dad is like, "Let me tell you about the Pentaverate," which of course he would then make a non-existent Netflix show about years later. So you see, I am so tuned into
Mike
Mike
Myers.
Myers' interests right now.
Sophia, big Mike Myers fan?
No,
Okay.
I can't
No,
say that I am.
I'm not either, but I've been on this weird little tangent.
Have you seen the Austin Powers movies?
I've seen one.
The first
of
one
them.
or
Yes, the first one.
It's a good movie.
I was like, wait, are there others? Yes.
It's okay.
It's a good
It's fine.
It's good. I like the sequel more. Spy Who Shagged Me.
I've always found his shtick a bit annoying, I think.
It's true.
I mean, he can't. I don't like it when an actor can't turn it off.
Yeah. Daniel Day-Lewis.
He never turns it off. It's the problem I have with Kate McKinnon. It's the problem I have with Mike Myers. They just are doing SNL skits for an entire movie, and I can't get down with it. Even Will Ferrell knows how to turn it off.
Sandler a little bit at these award shows. This whole like, I'm gonna do the Adam Sandler voice.
I think that is literally a way to deal with nervousness.
It's got to be because
it's
also annoying. Like I just go up there, say thank you, and leave if you don't want to.
I have to say though, from what I've heard, and he is like one of the nicest people.
That's what everybody says.
Who's Sandler? Yeah. Oh yeah, because I mean, like he also he gets all of his friends in his movies, gets them all this money, and then they are always going on like these. He took what George Clooney did and Soderbergh did for Ocean's 12 and has made an enterprise out of it. Where we're going to go on vacation and we're just going to go anywhere.
I mean, it's very lazy and has not been artistically fruitful, but
it's made him a ton of money.
Yes, it has. But the one story that I've heard about him that I love so much is somebody who was, I don't know if they were an extra or a grip or something, or I can't remember. I think they might have been an extra, and they went to go just grab some food on set, and I think somebody like a camera guy or something was like, "Hey man, crew gets it first," and then Adam Sandler went up to the guy and was like, I paid for this. They can get food whenever they want. I just think that's a cool thing to do.
Yeah. He's also he's like in his era too.
It's one thing to like give your already rich friends free cars, but it's another thing to have that same sort of respect for everybody on the set.
Yeah.
But I think he's also like in his era right now where he gets to like make these
Leo.
He gets to make like Leo, or he gets to make the Hotel Transylvania movies or whatever on Netflix. But then he also is working with like the Safdie brothers and Noah Baumbach.
He'll do that every now and then. He's doing another Safdie movie, right, about baseball cards.
He's also doing another movie like with Carey Mulligan about like something with Spaceman. I think that's coming out. He's also just signed up for the next. Him and Clooney are signed up for the next Baumbach film. Like,
yes, yeah,
he's doing more. He's doing more of a balance now, which is kind of good for him. Like he's, I think honestly, he had to make a lot of those movies like that because he had kids and stuff, and now they're older, and so he gets to like artistically like. I think he's a lot like Cage, like Nicolas Cage. When Cage made Pig, it really opened up like something in him to like make some more meaningful films. And I think when Uncut Gems happened, I think that opened it up for Sandler to be like, I think I should do this more often and push myself. Which is great.
Much of Cage's crappy movies were out of financial necessity.
Yes, but again, how much of Sandler's films were also out of financial necessity?
I don't think nearly as many.
Not for him, but maybe for like Rob Schneider.
Actual pyramids.
Rob Schneider.
Yeah, I'm just saying. I'm sure
Nicolas Cage should work with PTA soon.
God, that would be so wild.
That's interesting. I don't know if I agree.
I want to Sandler.
He has a face. He has a face that I think PTA could really, really work with, because PTA loves strange faces, and that are like, you could understand why people would be attracted to them, but that are just there's something there that makes them a bit more human.
Cage would have been
John C. Reilly.
Cage would have been better as like the Sean Penn character in Licorice Pizza. Like he would have been really good at that.
Oh, interesting.
Like you need like a aging movie star, someone that I actually like more than Sean Penn.
Ruined Bradley Cooper's Oscar chances for Licorice Pizza, so he's on my list. But
what do you mean?
You guys can talk. Well, he's the reason. So you know how in the end credits of Licorice Pizza where we see John Peters having that freak out at the gas station?
Yeah.
Sean Penn told PTA to cut that from the movie.
What? And he listened to him?
Mm-hmm. He was like, I guess that's right. It's out of Alana and Gary's POV. Like, we shouldn't have that in. It's away from them.
I mean, that makes sense. But also, like, I'm not taking directorial advice from a man who hasn't made a good movie since 2007 as a director.
Well, that's what happened.
Yeah. Anything else you want to talk about this movie? I mean, I feel like we haven't.
I have a
about
few
all
more
of them.
things.
Yeah. No, I mean, like, we're not done.
One thing I was going to
Jay hasn't even talked on it, to be fair.
I'm so sorry. I'm going on so long, you guys.
No.
One thing I just wanted to bring up though was that you talked about the like, are you you look thirsty or you're getting thirsty, and then they like drive away. And this movie it's so erotic to me without ever having a single like traditional sex scene in the way that you would think of it. I think that
I'm sure Film Twitter would love
movie,
that.
Though,
I do not find this movie erotic.
Really?
I will say that. No.
You don't find this hot?
I think I think it has so much eroticism in it, and just the way that the way that the camera moves and the close-ups of the women getting fitted for the dresses. I think even though so much of it is about putting people into clothing, it plays with that, I think, in a way. And I find it to be really, really erotic. Has a lot of kink to it. So that's just my thought.
I don't think the way that this movie approaches human bodies, I don't find it particularly erotic. I see it more as a tool in Reynolds's tool belt almost. It's presented so objectively most of the time to me that I never really feel that way about it. And that's just totally a subjective interpretation.
Well, she's the I mean, she's the expert. You're not, Jay. So just
that's true. I mean, I'm wrong.
You're wrong. You know?
I mean, I think it being a gothic story too, and just the way that their relationship unfolds, I think it has a lot of like subtle British eroticism.
And this might be something that appeals to you about these movies more than it does to me, where I find the button down nature of all of this stuff to be a little, I need it to be, this movie is not as perverted to me as Barry Lyndon, which is like the horniest movie ever made. And
see, I think this is pretty perverted.
I mean, there's definitely the like sickness kink thing that does have a sexual bend to it for sure. But the rest of the time I really am like, right, he's making dresses for these people who are a lot stupider than they think they are and are acting like complete morons. But I never get that sense of like, oh man.
Well, it's not really that type of, I think it's also partially because he's an older character too, which like, I don't know. Barry Lyndon is a horny, dumb himbo, right? In many ways. And Reynolds is a different.
R.I.P. Ryan O'Neal.
R.I.P. Ryan O'Neal.
Yes, and he's actually
one of the greatest casting choices ever.
He is
apparently a very bad man.
Jay, he's actually dead, so you can say that as opposed, when you thought that Cormac McCarthy was still alive, and
he is Ryan O'Neal's dead.
So good.
Yes, you just can confirm Cormac McCarthy, Ryan O'Neal. Dead.
Both dead. They're both dead. Equally alive.
I just wanted you to dead. I just wanted you to. I'm glad that you're aware of people that are alive.
I think Sophia just thinks Daniel Day-Lewis is super hot.
I think he is.
I think that's what's happening here.
That's true. I'd say it's probably part of it.
There are many men that look of his age that are like they can still get it.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, honestly, I know I'm significantly younger than him, but I would not hesitate. He's like 66, I think. He looks great.
And I guess it's just like maybe it's just a superficial thing where I'm like, I'm not super physically attracted to very many people in this movie.
No, but I don't think it's not even just that. I think that Sophia, I think you're kind of both right. I think that there is something in terms of the way that the bodies are used, the way that, obviously dresses and everything, but the way that these relationships are so attached to one another, and just how
I'm just too literal is what we're saying.
Yeah, I think you're a little too literal here. I think like Alma,
I'm psychologically basic.
But Alma and I think that the sort of just like how we talked about that the movie is very violent in terms of just the way in which it's metaphorically violent to these characters. I think it's also metaphorically erotic and sexy because through their craft and through the power dynamics, I think is where they get inspiration or get off from one another throughout the film. And that's where I think someone like Alma, I mean, she's completely vulnerable when he's measuring her. But then how does the table then turn when he's sick? He's completely vulnerable to her, and her smile throughout all those moments when he's sick, like when he's in a sweat, right? And he's barely got enough energy left to just, just if you fuss, I'll die right here, is what he says. And she's just completely happy in this moment, because this is what kind of turns her on, is his vulnerability. And thus from that vulnerability, his creativity, and how her final smile at the end is when he's hungry again, when he's inspired again, when the tables have turned. And then the final shot of the film, as the credits are rolling, is her once again standing still for hours, and her proud of being able to do that because of
I
his
can stand
inspiration.
endlessly.
I can stand endlessly. Exactly. Like, I think that's everyone's different in terms of how they essentially get off, and that this is their sick relationship dynamic that I find that I think is wild for these characters. Like, they're wild.
At the end, it's definitely
freaks.
like, look at these certified freaks.
I'm telling you, they're freaks.
That's the part I think that, like, the
little
two
baby,
moments, the moments in the film that I find like more erotic, I would say, are it's not many things to do with Reynolds and Alma at first. It's when Henrietta Harding comes in for the fitting, and the way that the camera is capturing her, and the way that Reynolds is looking at her, and this very intimate act of dressing someone, and like, let's take her for a walk, that whole thing. I think it's very charged. And you think about Reynolds' past relationships with these women, and the intimacy between him and his clients, also with Lady Baltimore near the end.
I was going to take it.
Something was going on there at some point in time.
I mean, take it a step further with the princess, and how when she's being measured and everything for her dress, how threatened Alma is by that young girl in this look. And it's totally a professional relationship, but she's seen all these women that are sort of unobtainable, or maybe that he's passed on or whatnot, of past relationships. She sees this gorgeous woman, and that's being fitted by her, and she feels that this is like the closest parallel that she's had to herself. And why does she then say this ridiculous thing of like, I don't know, happy for your wedding, but I live here, so back the fuck off.
Funny.
You know what I mean?
So
like,
funny.
it's so funny, but it's also like, Jesus Christ, he's not thinking about that at all. But that becomes her obsession when why she wants to make the dinner. And then when she's making the martini, will you make the dress? Are you worried about the dress? And he's like, I've made all of her fucking dresses. Like, why the hell wouldn't I make this dress? And she's like, it's not what I meant. I didn't mean it to, like, it's that thing of like, getting in your own head about something when there's nothing there. And so, I think I think you're onto something there, Sophia, for sure.
Well, and at the end too, I love that weird, sick flirtation between the two of them with the doctor around.
Where he winks at her and smooches at her, and she's just like, she's so giddy. She's like
right
giddy,
after he has his mouth wide open and is getting his throat examined, and then he just like looks over at her and like does that little air kiss, and she's like, oh my god, wow, this is my man that I've done this to. It's
heart
great.
is full of swoon in that moment. Like,
he likes me. We also get the requisite Paul Thomas Anderson perv shot where it's just a man's crotch and a woman's face in the frame.
Yeah.
Which one? Which one? Oh, is that
that is when they first meet, when he's about to size her up, and she's sitting, and he
yes.
His
Jay's always looking for
the at face level.
Jay's always looking for the crotch shot.
He's got you gotta have
the crotch shot. Every one of them.
If not every movie, almost every movie.
Yeah.
It's complete power dynamic.
It is.
Well. But then there's also moments where she's got that shot, I think, too, by the bedside and things of that nature as well. So I mean, like, there's just so much about this movie. You talk about Lady Baltimore.
I love Lady Baltimore.
What a bitch. I mean, like, seriously, I don't know if there's if it's racist.
Stealing things?
Yeah, stealing things in their culture. You're like, what the fuck are you talking about, lady? Like, but it's so of the time, like, she's like tiptoeing around it, but she's like pushing a line. It's very Eric Anderson. I'm just gonna put that out there.
Oh, Eric would be Lady Baltimore.
Just being like, like taking you to dinner. But like she's on the opposite side of the room. So of course she's not gonna look over here all night. But like she hasn't looked at you once, then I cuts the meat, eats it, cuts the meat. It's like what the fuck? You know what I mean? Like she really is awful. Like she says that too. But this movie has a top 5 PTA shot for me.
Oh,
my
yeah.
favorite
I know
shot.
what you're going to talk about.
You know what I'm going to talk about?
The snow dissolve.
The snow dissolve. And he's sitting there on the bench and she's walking up the trail. And just that, I'm telling you, if you own the 4K of this movie, just that shot of just him with the mountain and behind him is to the side of him, I guess. Oh my God, it's so fucking beautiful.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
And it's also like really the quietest moment because it falls after their honeymoon breakfast where she's eating the granola or and you could see him just being like, oh boy, I just really married into this,
Well, I love that they're still annoyed with each other when they're married, like at first too. Like they're in their honeymoon and they hate each other a bit.
Yeah, she's like great. Fucking mad about the backgammon game. You know what I mean?
Which also has my favorite Reynolds line in the entire movie, which I have said in real life and people do not take it well. As a competitive person, when he says, if you were victorious, I think you'd see it in a different light.
Wait, you're a competitive person? I would have never thought that.
Oh, never
in a million years.
Very, very chill when it comes to anything that involves a competition.
Oh, no. But, I mean, yeah, no, there's Jay, do you have anything else?
I love when a movie will take a theme and then slightly manipulate that theme over the course of the entire movie and make that essentially the entire score.
Yes.
The theme of this to me is very reminiscent of the Barry Lyndon theme.
Boom, boom. I like that at the end when she's bringing home the final mushrooms, right, Jay?
And then, I mean, you can sort of get a little tingly piano version of it that sort of adds a little whimsy to it, or you can make it harrowing
like 4 or
and
5
dramatic.
iterations. Yeah, it's so good.
It's like
Johnny Greenwood, good
at his job.
And I think the one final tangent we have to let Sophia go on. I mean, she's welcome to do as many as she wants, but
what is it?
I need her take on Taylor Swift's admiration for this.
Oh fuck! I forgot about this shit. God damn it!
I've put some thought into this.
So let's contextualize. What exactly did Taylor Swift say?
So Taylor Swift said that she wrote a song, which is I forgot what
Mastermind.
Called Mastermind. God fucking damn it! I hate the title of this song. And she said that she watched the end of this movie, and by the end, she said something along the line. Maybe Sophia, you have the full quote.
I will pull it up.
We'll pull it up. But it was essentially, in my opinion, the most
stupid
take you can have on this movie.
Let's get the quote.
Here's what she said. She said, remember that last scene? I thought, wouldn't it be fun to have a lyric about being calculated? It's something that's been thrown at me like a dagger, but now I take it as a compliment.
And so let's foreground this. Sophia and Ryan loathe Taylor Swift. I am pretty much Taylor Swift agnostic.
She's doing what she always does, which is make things about herself. That's what this is.
There's some sort of psychological analysis that could be done about the fact that
and then
you two hate Taylor Swift and absolutely love this movie, and I'm like agnostic on Taylor Swift and like it slightly less.
Let me just tell you, at least 7 people texted me to give their condolences when she mentioned this movie.
Well,
that's how vocal I've been about my disdain for her and my love for this movie.
Focus Features put it all over their social media, as they should. But they went crazy for it. Yeah, and I'm like,
but
you
this
guys
doesn't make any sense.
Did you guys fucking watch the fucking movie that you own? What the hell are you talking about?
Also, Travis Kelce he seems like such a himbo. Imagine him being poisoned by her. He'd be like, okay, I don't know.
Well, he's not the one getting poisoned. It's actually the rest of the wide receiving core there at Kansas City. But that's another issue.
Yes.
Yeah.
But my takedown of my breakdown of this,
a little bit of both,
is that here, like the lyrics to this song, I did look them up because I had never heard the song before.
You asked for it.
And
you asked for this, Jay.
It just
no, I did. I'm loving it.
Truly doesn't make sense into how this song is inspired by Phantom Thread. She says no one wanted to play with me as a little kid, so I've been scheming like a criminal ever since to make them love me and make it seem effortless. What? Okay, this isn't about Alma. This is about her relationship with her fans. That's, to me, the reading of Mastermind that she doesn't want to tell people. It's like, here's how I control my fans. And Alma, she's not like a controlling individual to me. She's someone who's found a way to keep someone at bay and to like take care of them in her own way. It's not like a Machiavellian thing that she's doing to me. She's just she's just a weird woman. Like if you listen to her talking to Dr. Hardy too, she's just like, no one can stand as long as I can. And I do think that's a very Taylor Swift thing. Like no one can do what I do. I'm this way. But I'm bringing it back to another Taylor Swift song that if Taylor were a bit smarter and more literary, I think she would have used in reference to this. And that's the song Invisible String from Folklore, which I think if she really liked Phantom Thread, she would think about Phantom Thread and Invisible String and it being about the fates and tying you to another person in a relationship. But no, she chose a song about her instead.
Which, I mean, she always makes it about her.
I don't think either of you are immune to a bad faith Taylor Swift takedown.
That was pretty good.
I just like, it's not conceptually supposed to be about the movie Phantom Thread, but I can understand someone having a feeling evoked while watching a movie, inspiring them to make a song.
But that song has nothing to do contextually with it. And it also is just,
it was an evocation of a feeling that she had. Was it a self-centered evocation? Yes.
Which isn't that the essence of Taylor Swift?
Also, she's not a film critic.
But
I don't want to hear her opinion on films.
She got backing from Searchlight to distribute her first feature, which, like, come on, she wants an Oscar more than Bradley Cooper wants one at this point.
She's desperate.
I don't know about that.
She just like she's bringing.
She totally wants
movies.
One.
She's
Bradley Cooper though.
Bradley Cooper just admitted he would give up for a Super Bowl. She would never do that.
I don't know if that's.
He said that to endear himself to Oscar voters.
Exactly, but she's the one that lost a Golden Globe to Adele and sulked the rest of the night and blamed fucking Amy Poehler and Tina Fey and called them anti-feminists. So
I can't believe that you guys like turned me into you turned me into a Swiftie temporarily.
Yeah.
Anytime you talk about Taylor
also
Swift.
too her concert movie was awful and nowhere near as good as Beyonce's.
Well, that's true. Also,
I didn't see that one. I doubt I'll ever experience the Eras tour.
Watching Renaissance made me think of Beyonce actually as a Reynolds-esque character in a way. I think they have some similarities. Very
Beyonce actually like says some, but Beyonce actually like says something about herself in her music documentaries and about her life and everything. Like Homecoming a couple years ago, like that was such a great vulnerability of as an artist, but then also to put great moments about her craftsmanship as a performer, and also just the idea of an Eras tour is just stupid to me. Like
she's 30 something. Like
if I did an era like this podcast,
she does have Eras because she used to put on a country affectation.
Oh yes,
even though she's from Pennsylvania and her dad was a banker or whatever. Like exactly. No, you didn't grow up poor on a farm. I don't want to hear it.
Yeah, singing about
anyway. I thought you were going to ask me about Daniel Day-Lewis retiring, but the Taylor Swift thing, I think it did needed to be done.
No, it did because I also think this too. It's if you think that by the end of this movie, that from the ending, she said that right? Like she watched the end of this movie.
From the ending, she watched the ending. Yes.
If you think that Alma is manipulating Reynolds, or what's the title song? It's mastermind of this whole thing. Like that whole ending, which you love, Jay, and we all love too. That is a ending of two people finally accepting the relationship and the dynamics in there, and their love for
There's
one
nothing
another.
intellectual about that ending. It's all
pretty straightforward.
Psychosexually emotional.
It's just great.
Yeah. So if you're taking that she's a mastermind out of this, like it's finally him getting over himself and accepting. You could
call her an emotional mastermind, where she has keyed in on his.
I mean, she just figured out the code.
She has figured out his pressure point.
But she's figured out
in a way that no one else ever has.
Well, that's not true. I wouldn't say that that's not true, because I think Cyril's figured it out.
Cyril's the real
Cyril at the beginning of this movie, when he's being fussy and everything.
Name for a song.
When he's being fussy at the beginning of this movie, at the getting too emotional or sappy, she's like, "Why don't you just go to the country for the day? Clear your head, move on." Nobody in a relationship, sexual relationship, like a physical relationship, has ever gotten to that point. She's gotten to finally figure out the code that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm twisting my brain in knots trying to get to an incorrect interpretation of a way that someone could have this interpretation of the movie, just because y'all are going hard in the paint on Taylor.
She just wants to work with Paul Thomas Anderson, and that's how this came about. She wanted to mention it because she is a mastermind.
She's obsessed with working with people. She is a
marketing genius. I will give her that.
Yeah, well, genius is a stretch, but
why would anyone else be obsessed with someone so milquetoast?
Because she's jealous that her friend Alana Haim got to work with PTA and not her.
No, I'm just saying, it's like her fans are rabid. It's like a cult, right?
Yeah,
so
I'm sure we're gonna get
own
a ton of people
creation.
Yeah, exactly.
It's kind of weird how like the world of boy bands has shifted into like Swiftiedom.
Yeah. Oh, we were growing up, boy bands were the most toxic thing ever. And now it's just.
Yeah.
Were you guys NSYNC or Backstreet Boys?
Ooh.
I liked NSYNC more when I was growing up.
I was Backstreet Boys all day.
I was NSYNC, but I love the Backstreet Boys too. Like,
I like them both.
Yeah, it was more of a 98 Degrees.
I wonder if Daniel Day-Lewis likes any of them.
I was more of an LFO. Remember that song?
Oh my god, Summer Girls, or what is it? Yeah.
When you take a sip, you buzz like a hornet.
Oh my god!
Billy Shakespeare wrote a whole bunch of sonnets. Call me Willie Whistle because I can't speak, baby. Something in your eyes went and drove me crazy.
See, you opened up another can of worms. No,
Macaulay Culkin wasn't home alone.
All right, no, we're not doing this.
The great Larry Bird, Jersey 33.
Okay, what a bunch of lyricists that inspired a generation of bad music.
Yeah.
Billy Shakespeare wrote trying to rhyme hornet with sonnet is some.
Yeah.
That's some mastermind stuff.
That's some mastermind stuff.
I could see why Taylor Swift would like Phantom Thread though. Like it does kind of make sense with, I mean, her like vibe of wanting to be like a woman with cats in an English country house, and she was with Joe Alwyn for a while. So like I get her watching it.
Wait, she likes cats? I couldn't tell by that Time magazine person of the year photo. I couldn't tell with that cat on top of her head. That was in like dead eye.
The wet hair look is very out. I don't know why.
Sophia, you got to come back for the David O. Russell series when we do Amsterdam.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I'm ready.
Yeah. The whole episode is just gonna be about pushing her in front of
I never saw that movie.
Oh, you saw that clip.
I saw the clip.
The clip's fun.
Yeah. Oh my god, it's fun because it's like she just kind of. It almost looks like she went into the sewer system the way she got hit up by that car. Like, and she went like under it and like.
David O. Russell used to be good, right? He used to actually.
I'm not commenting on any of this.
I've never really been a huge fan of any of his movies.
Really. I think there was
the old ones.
I think there was a moment where he was making quality enough films that Oscar voters liked.
Mm-hmm.
But
he has been just like an Oscar.
But he's thirsty for it. He's chasing it. Like, I think that's the thing about, we'll talk about maybe the awards chances of this film here in a little bit, but any awards chances for this movie were, for a long, long time, it was always just Daniel Day-Lewis in costumes. So when this overperformed, it was a genuine surprise. And it also just proved how much
happy.
The Academy, PTA's not making movies for the Academy. But he's making his own interesting things. But it's really crazy when they sort of align with one another. And when they respond to his movies, because his movies are of a old auteur, when like, you know, Kubrick or Altman's films would translate over, and not every film did, but they translated over to the Academy when it was something that they really vibed with. And then I think the reason why, in all joking and all seriousness about Taylor Swift, the reason why she would be able to relate to this movie, one, it does have a very female centered performance and take on this film, but the other is that it's his most probably accessible film since There Will Be Blood, because like The Master and Inherent Vice,
that's a low bar, but
I know it is, but you know what I'm saying?
I would love
like,
to know if she saw herself in The Master, actually. That might fit more.
Who is her
she's like an L. Ron Hubbard type.
Who's her comp?
No, is she the L. Ron Hubbard, or is she Amy Adams?
No, because she's not pulling the strings behind. That's her mom.
Yeah.
Her
Andrea.
Yeah.
I don't like that in the context of that movie.
Well, I'm just talking about in terms of.
So, Sophia, I have a question for you. So you don't like Taylor Swift at all?
No.
How do you feel about the celebrity persona of like Jennifer Lawrence, who's like this?
What do you feel like? What do you think about people that are?
I'm just like you.
Yeah, I don't really like that. I mean, I
think she stopped that though.
My favorite celebrities. My favorite celebrities really are private and very inaccessible. Like, it's kind of counterintuitive to what other people like in terms of celebrity. I think, you know, what Taylor Swift has tapped into and what people love is that she claims she's like doing everything for her fans and being so authentic, and that works for people. But I just like don't love oversaturation and like, here I am, I'm normal. It's like, no, you're not normal. You have $1 billion.
Yeah.
She's generally fairly private, with the exception of stuff that leaks out very purposefully.
I mean,
well,
she's very calculating.
She's very calculated. That's what the song should have been called.
But she wants everything to be, I think, like, she does want it to be like a commercial for herself in a lot of ways. And that's something I resist. Like, I love the idea that Daniel Day-Lewis has a flip phone and he's either in his New York apartment or in Connecticut or Ireland, and we don't know about him. Do you
think Christopher Nolan and Daniel Day-Lewis have ever talked on two flip phones at the same time?
Oh, they've had to talk.
I hope so. I know Christopher Nolan loves Phantom Thread.
Yes.
But with and like, I love that story about his kids calling him Reynolds
Mr. Woodcock.
Mr. Woodcock. Yeah. That's so good.
You got your gun. Where's your gun?
So cute and British. But with Jennifer Lawrence, like, I don't think she's so much like that anymore. Like, I don't really think it bothers me, but it used to, for sure. But I think, like, I don't know. I also think she's more talented. Emma Stone a bit. Yeah. There's just something, I don't know. There's just something
that was a really big thing like 10 years ago.
Yeah. And
they're just like us.
Yeah. I don't like that.
Now Emma Stone is doing Yorgos Lanthimos movies, and Jennifer Lawrence kind of stepped away.
And I think becoming mothers and stepping away from the spotlight, I think that they grew the fuck up and realized that that's a shtick that can happen in your Tiger Beat, 18, making.
Also, celebrity has totally become aspirational.
Yes.
That's the shift.
But I think
no longer about like, they're just one of us. It's like, I want to be like them.
But some people grow up.
Popular.
Yeah. I mean, like, for me, I just, it all just comes down to, I just don't find like the music lyrically interesting. Like, as somebody like Beyonce or her voice to be as of generational talent, like somebody like Lady Gaga or like
talented.
Or like an Adele or somebody like, or a Rihanna, they have like, talk about like Gaga. She's got actual eras of like different personalities and different albums and different things that she's done, and where she can sing something like fucking Poker Face and then be singing standards with Tony Bennett and singing, acting really good in something like A Star Is Born, or singing opera. It's like, that's a gifted artist. And I feel like, I don't know. I also think it's just like Taylor Swift is just for little girls.
Taylor Swift makes very agreeable music.
She does. Yes. And it's just it's sort of the basic standard. But like, when I see articles where like she's the Bruce Springsteen of her generation, I sit there and I go like,
come on.
Wait, has some people have said that?
Yes.
That's been an article that's been written.
She's the greatest songwriter to have ever lived.
Yeah.
Well, Bruce
and
Springsteen was like the blue collar.
he was the heir apparent.
Dylan.
He was the heir apparent to Bob Dylan. Like, come on. Like, it's
Well,
ridiculous.
the thing that I just don't like being told what to like either.
That's the other thing.
I feel like
See,
growing up with like people just being so infatuated by Taylor Swift's
So this is
lyrics,
the
I was just kind
poptimism
of
thing.
like,
Yeah.
yes. And Sean Fennessy actually described it really well in The Big Picture, where he was just like, the idea that people were all of a sudden, when some of her earlier albums came out, they were like, this is a new step forward intellectually. And he was just like, what are you talking about? Like, can't you just enjoy the music for what it is? And like, I think what she's done is she's given, right, like she's given women and girls in particular, which I think is admirable, and I understand, like telling girls that the thoughts that you have actually matter, and vocalizing that and saying that, like that's important, and I understand why that connects with people. But I think that the deeper thing here is that she has somehow convinced millions of people around the world that she's a billionaire who's also a victim and is also bullied constantly. And it's like, how have you done this? And she also has, like, I think, created this persona that, like you said, is super accessible. And now with the way that celebrity has evolved, I think a lot of people, in particular white women in the South and the Midwest, they see her as someone who they could be. Like, she has an attainable level of beauty. She has, this kind of
Damn,
thing.
shots
She's
fired.
like, you can be me if you try hard enough. And it's like, I don't know, the new American dream is to be Taylor Swift, I
Well,
swear.
I think she used to be that. I think that was her country era. Was our song is a slamming screen door. I have a screen door just like you. And
well, that's all that music, to be fair.
But that's the era's thing. She has had eras. You say she hasn't had eras. She has had eras.
She
manipulates her persona for financial gain. I mean, she's very calculating.
She just went from pop to.
I don't know though. Like
she went from country pop to poppy pop to sweater country or whatever it is, indie rock.
Like, when paparazzi have pictures of her like leaving dinner with her friends or whatever, I'm like, you look the same every time. You're wearing Free People. Like, you're not Madonna, you're not Gaga, you're not that kind of.
You're not Daniel Day-Lewis. I mean, look at Daniel Day-Lewis. Like, look at him.
I don't know. There's just something about her that's always rubbed me the wrong way.
Jay really got us on the
I'm glad I could finally leave my stamp on this episode.
Yeah. Yes. Good job, Jay. You really derailed us.
Something that was so positive for me into something where I really can
but I honestly
unleash my opinions.
I do think though that the criticism, or like the statement that Taylor Swift kind of made, is a lot of just the misunderstanding.
I mean, she's not a terribly intellectually curious person.
No,
but she wants you to think she is.
I mean, sometimes it is just a hat rack for
Welcome
people.
to public life. That's how every single one of these people is.
But what I was going to say is that when there were the criticisms of this film that came out, and there were a lot of the sort of negative drawback, or like, why do people like this? Or there were a lot of people that also like the idea of these two freaks getting together by the end of this movie, it really rubbed people the wrong way. It was, I think, ultimately the thing that you could say about it is, I'm surprised that she related to it, because she's never been in a long-term relationship long enough that is sustainable, that has equal levels of power.
This is some
dynamics.
Real armchair psychology we're getting into now.
Six years is a long time.
Yeah, but I mean, sure.
Like I will say, like, she was with Joe Alwyn for a long.
I think that she needs to be with
time.
I think she needs to be with somebody not famous, and I don't think that she's got the ability to do that. I think
Travis is perfect for her.
Remember when people started digging up Travis's tweets, and one of them was like, "Damn, this squirrel is eating a lot of nuts out my window right now."
I mean,
I think she needs someone like him.
Yeah,
who's like just praising her every chance he can.
I think
she's clearly the dominant one.
But no, it just goes back to, I think that a lot of people,
a little golden retriever boy,
have always misinterpreted sort of these films, or they've taken their meanings, and people really think that there's something super insidious or super different about PTA's movies, especially like this one, because you are dealing with relationship dynamics, and a lot of people have never actually fully experienced that kind of real collaborative relationship, and it's a lot to take in, and it's such a weird, specific, yet also kind of at times very relatable. There are moments in this, if you've ever been in a relationship, longer than, whatever the paparazzi is publishing, that that like those moments of just absolute graininess, or we've talked about them extensively already, but then I just think of the final moments that Alma's talking about, how it turns from narration with the doctor and a conversation with the doctor into conversation she's having with the last bit of vulnerableness that Reynolds has. This sort of, I'm going to take care of you, but I'm not just going to take care of you. I can see a vision of taking care of the House of Woodcock, which she does. And I think that this is all true and this all happens. They have a life together. They have a baby, Cyril's Aunt Cyril, which I
love when she's pushing the pram and she's like, ugh, leaving me with this baby.
You're leaving me with this fucking kid. But that we're at a place now where the playing field is leveled. And yet even still, he's like, but I'm getting hungry again. And she's like, yep, it worked. You know what I mean? Like and the cycle's going to continue, but it's not probably going to continue the same way. And if it is, you're going to get right back to this. And he's probably going to be sick even more. But I think that there's an acknowledgement by the end of everything. Like Jay, you were talking about with the ending, that when he eats that omelet, I think that is the complete turning point of their entire relationship in the future of everything. And
so interesting that he made licorice pizza after this.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's actually interesting because he makes this, and this is actually, obviously an ode to his wife. But then Licorice Pizza is a movie really about, I'm in the house with my kids. I'm seeing what's happening to my daughters. I'm seeing what's happening to sort of women in general, but then also the wildness that boys create from that age to older. And we'll talk about this next week. But I think they're actually really good companion pieces, and they're actually his most personal pieces of work, if that weirdly makes sense, because they're the things that are now present in his life, which is his children and his wife. And so that's why I'm so curious to see what he's going to do next, because if he's talked about his wife, he's talked about essentially children, and has his children in the film.
He already did his dad movie.
What's next? You know what I mean?
Mom?
I want to say,
but he talks a lot about his mom here, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. This is his mommy issues movie.
When he's like, I miss her, and there's a lot of regret, and it feels like those scenes when he's in the bed with the dress on and everything, they feel very in companion with the Robarts, Tom Cruise scenes from Magnolia. They feel like very much akin to one another.
Jason Robart, that's how I feel when I have a head cold, like Jason Robards in Magnolia.
Oh, like Sophia, you were gonna say something?
Oh, yeah. No, I just want to get on the record that I think PTA doesn't get enough credit for how well written these women are in his last two films in particular, with Phantom Thread and with Licorice Pizza. I've never felt, I think, as fully understood as in some scenes with Alana and with Alma and with Cyril, in just how it gets into some of the uglier things I think that you experience that also are very dark but very funny at times, and just all of those. I don't know, I think he's not afraid to create these women who are both, right, that have so many good things going for them, but also, are jealous and insecure.
Very complex.
Very, very complex. And I love that about his most two, like about Phantom Thread and Licorice Pizza. And I think what's next for him that's interesting is that he's talked about, I remember in press for this movie, he talked about wanting to make a more overt ghost story. So I know this is a ghost story in little ways, and its influences, and how the mother's ghost comes up in that beautiful scene. But it made me think about when, Kubrick made The Shining, and how cool that was for someone like Kubrick to make a horror movie. I would love for PTA to make a horror movie.
Yeah, I was thinking a lot of like The Eternal Daughter, sort of,
yeah,
kind of like even more haunting and bleak.
I liked that movie.
Me too.
I love that movie.
It's a good movie.
I love it.
Good movie.
It's really sad
about that. Also, too, I can confirm, if you mess with Sophia, she'll put you into the floor. Just like Cyril, he'll be on the floor. Understood.
Oh my
You know what I
God.
mean?
I really am a Cyril.
She
Like
is a Cyril.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jay, what are you in this movie? I feel like very Reynolds.
Who
I
am
have an
I
idea
in
for
this movie?
Jay.
I do too.
I
Jay's
don't know.
Nigel.
Yeah. I
Jay's
have
Nigel.
like the scene when they're sitting at the table together and those girls come up. I feel like that's how we would
Jay
all
would
react.
totally resell a dress off a dead
I'd be
body.
like, please go away. Thank you for your kind words. Good night.
Yeah.
Ryan has seen this in action at film
I've seen it.
festivals.
I've seen it. And it's yeah. She's
Yeah.
also there's just the photo of them at the table, the two of them. If that's not how we've been at a festival every now and then, where Sophia's having to like calm me off of like off a ledge of stupidity
When
from
Reynolds
others
is just
around.
kind of moping and she's like, there. It's gonna be okay. Here's what
Yeah.
I'm gonna do.
But
It'll
also,
be fine.
she'll go, I don't want to hear any of this, Ryan, because it hurts my ears, you know. And Jay would just be like the guy would be like, yeah, I'll sell your dress, you know what I mean? Or they're talking about like there's a moment where like right before the Alma says something about being thirsty and you hear Cyril say it like, you're not going to eat that? Why aren't you going to eat that? You know what I mean? Like off the distance. And
That's
then
me.
Jay would
Little
go on a
carnivore.
tangent about like why he wouldn't eat something like that. Jay,
Mm-hmm.
how you doing?
I'm great, man.
Yeah?
Yep.
You think you might be up for something?
Testing a little bit of my trivia knowledge.
Yeah, because
Perhaps.
before we get out of here, Jay, I just want to test your award season knowledge based off the film we just reviewed, which was Phantom Thread. In a segment we like to call It's an Honor to Get Nominated. Now, you know,
Dun, dun, dun.
based off of this conversation, Jay, that this movie was nominated for Oscars. Now, can you tell me what Oscars it was nominated for?
Okay, costumes. Boom.
Well, yeah,
Got that one.
got it. In the bag. Good.
This got a best picture, correct?
Correct, Amundo.
This got a best screenplay.
It did not.
Are you? Oh, we actually talked about this a couple weeks ago.
talked about
That is
this, yeah.
absurd.
Yeah, this was
heinous.
the Big Sick got in over this.
God,
The fact
we're
that a
still-
movie called The Big Sick got in over a movie that handles illness and getting
yeah.
sick more delicately. It's a joke.
I just can't. I can't go to the grocery store without somebody screaming in my face. Remember how good the Big Sick was? Do you remember how good the Big Sick was? It's just top of mind still to this day.
Very topical.
I feel like I remember him getting a director nomination.
He did.
Okay,
Okay.
and then DDL for sure.
Yes.
And if this is very sound forward, it had to have gotten a sound.
Ooh. It didn't, but you're on the
No
right track.
sound.
But you're on the right
If
track.
only.
Cinematography.
No.
Jesus Christ.
It didn't get cinematography
the
because
Oscars, guys. Why do you guys like the Oscars? What a
Because-
dumb
I really
thing.
don't. I
It
really
did-
don't anymore. I don't think.
I think the reason why he didn't get into cinematography, yeah, Eric really wants to hear that on a podcast, is
I'm just teasing.
because he did the cinematography and there was this whole there's this whole controversy about who got the credit for the cinematography and he's not in the guild or something like that.
It's like it's an extension of direction or something.
yeah, and
Whatever.
it was like an amalgamation of like a team that did it all together. But like Licorice Pizza was more defined, I believe, as he did the cinematography then. But but no,
All right.
Yep.
What else have we got? Production design?
no.
What are we doing? What are we doing?
It was a late
Mhm.
release, so that's why
Yeah,
for it
that's
to get
part
the
of the
nomination,
problem.
that was probably the problem. As well, yeah.
Was this the Green Book year?
No, this was
Mm-mm.
the Shape of Water year.
Okay, God.
No, no,
Shape
no.
of Water. There's a movie that's just kind of slipped through the cracks.
Yep. You're missing. Do you want me to tell you the others?
No. How many am I missing though?
You got two more.
Two more. Oh, supporting actress.
That is correct. Leslie Manville got the surprise supporting actress nomination, which was incredible.
And editing.
No,
Damn. All right, I don't know the last one.
the last one is a first. It is Johnny Greenwood's first Oscar nomination.
Oh,
for
how did I not think of that?
the score.
I think I knew that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
which is a wonderful.
Oh, that's the hint you were giving me. Sound.
Yeah, you dumbass. Yeah. So Jay, this obviously Shape of Water won Best Picture. DDL lost to Gary Oldman for Darkest Hour.
Ugh, painful.
Even more, Leslie Manville lost to Allison Janney for I, Tonya. The original screenplay winner was Jordan Peele for Get Out. So can't really fault that.
I mean, this is a better screenplay than Get Out, but
I get it.
Get Out is a very important movie.
That is like Sophia and I talk about this all the time. A movie of the time. Get Out was very much that. I think Peele's made better movies.
And it was a surprise. And
yes, big surprise. Like a big story for it.
I remember watching that for the first time and kind of being like, whoa, that kind of came out of nowhere.
Del Toro won director. Mark Bridges won costume design. So there's that, which is really funny based off the conversation we had about these costumes and their purpose and everything.
No, but that's brilliant. That's masterful. Brilliant. Being able to delineate those two kind of things is
Mark Bridges, a really nice guy.
Making nice just pretty things does not necessarily mean that you made the best costumes of the year. But it has to be purposeful. And look, I know all about movie making now because I just went to a Q&A with Roger Deakins. Okay,
here we go.
And he said everything he does needs to be in the service of story. And so one time somebody came to him and said, I want this movie to look utterly boring. And he was like, and you know, that's something you would never expect Roger Deakins to want to do. But he was like, it felt so appropriate for the story that he was trying to tell that I was very interested in doing that. And it didn't end up happening. But I just thought that was kind of a enlightening sort of thing that he said, is just like, he's a tool to tell the story. He's not trying to center himself in that way, which I feel like a lot of people are. I mean, showy cinematography is becoming that whole one perfect shot mentality has kind of poisoned cinematography in some ways.
Well, you say that all about Deakins. This was the year he won for Blade Runner 2049. So
finally got his, huh?
And talk about showy cinematography.
We talked about that movie. That is showy cinematography, but it's in service of the scale and scope.
Exactly. It's beautiful in film. I'm not just sliding it. It's just funny that you mentioned that. The score was Shape of Water for Alexander Desplat.
That's a good score.
It's a good score, but when it's comparative to like the two other scores that I love in here, which is I love this score from Johnny Greenwood, and then the Dunkirk score from Hans Zimmer is, I think, extraordinary work. And
I like when that score goes tick 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 tick.
But you talk about like in the purpose of that movie, it's
no. I've said about that score. That score is not a score I will ever listen to just at home working or something, but it is
in the context of the movie.
Perfect in that movie.
Yeah. Jade, the Best Pictures nominees were The Shape of Water, and then Call Me by Your Name, Darkest Hour, Dunkirk, Get Out, Lady Bird, Phantom Thread, The Post, and 3 Billboards Outside of Ebbing, Missouri.
That's 3 Billboards. That's another one that's just permeated the culture,
especially after Banshees. You're just like, God damn it! What did we do there? And that has 2 Oscar wins actually that year for Francis and for Sam Rockwell.
I love that. I just built the 3 Billboards Lego set. It's awesome. They did such a good job.
But it's a big year. I think like this Best Director lineup, dare I say, is the epitome of Hollywood filmmaking at its finest right now, right? Because you have Del Toro and PTA, who are champions of celluloid. I mean, obviously Del Toro's been a very big champion of, I'm just going to move past Jay, of animation of recent years. Obviously PTA, master auteur, gets to call his own shot. Nolan nominated for this, his first director nomination. Obviously, probably the biggest director on the planet outside of Big Jim. Peele, who is a name brand within itself, and then of course Greta Gerwig, who is now made the biggest movie of the year this year with Barbie, but then goes on with Little Women. In this, she's become a brand within herself, I believe, as well. These are 5 directors. These are probably, like, in terms of Hollywood and power, maybe the most, like, definitely what you could talk about is the 5 most popular directors, or at least known directors right now working, that when you see these 5 directors, you go, maybe that's who I want to go see, outside of a couple of names, obviously. But those are like, yeah, to go see the new Del Toro. Yeah, I go see the new PTA. Yeah, I go see the new Nolan. Like, for a lot of people,
Del Toro's not on that tier for me, but
me either. Yeah,
I think because he's such a craftsman, that I'm always curious about what he's going to build, and he makes. He's always made just really interesting, fantastical films, and yeah, I think more of his Hollywood era right now that he's in is less interesting as like Kronos or Pan's Labyrinth or even like the Hellboy movies.
Remember when he made
Pacific Rim
stop motion Pinocchio movie that had one song exclusively full of poop jokes?
Yes. And then it went on to win Best Animated Feature because
I think that for me, like, is fine for Guillermo del Toro for his Oscar. Like, Pinocchio, that's perfect. We don't need these for The Shape of Water, in my opinion.
Okay. Oh, so you're just gonna regulate him to the animated category?
The Shape of Water is,
in this case,
like,
yes.
You know what? Animated is only good to get in these categories. Sophia is calling it not cinema. And
you know who rules in The Shape of Water?
Michael Shannon.
Ricky Jenks.
Oh, Richard Jenkins?
Yeah,
he is really good. Richard Jenkins is good in everything. Like, I loved when they nominated him for The Visitor. That was just such an inspired nomination. But he should have also been nominated for Step Brothers. When he does the T-Rex thing, fucking hilarious.
I'm officially team Burn After Reading is top tier Coens.
Oh, it's so good.
He's so good in that.
You like Burn After Reading, Sophia?
I do, but I prefer other Coen movies.
Other Coen comedies.
Yeah,
or you like more of the serious
dramas.
Stuff.
I like Inside Llewyn Davis. I like No Country. Yeah.
Fargo.
Yeah,
those are good stuff. Would you give PTA director here? Either one of you?
What were the others?
It was Del Toro. It's everybody just said.
This is probably the.
I'm not listening.
No, I mean, it's better
Del
directed
Toro,
than
Nolan.
It's better directed than Get Out. It's better directed than Shape of Water. It's
better directed than Lady Bird.
It's better directed than Lady Bird.
Dunkirk.
I would say it's Dunkirk or this, and I would probably lean this from a pure direction standpoint.
Me too. Yeah, this would be for me. Picture, director. Are you doing the other categories? Can I just run down them?
Just do them.
What I would give it to.
Well, you give it to all 6.
Director, all 6 and more. Daniel Day-Lewis, this should have been another Oscar for him, I think, pretty easily.
God,
what does he have, 3?
He would he has 3. This would have been 4.
But this would have been 4. And I feel like no other performance here really comes close to what he's doing. I understand the love for Timothée Chalamet and Call Me By Your Name, but like,
he's good in it. It's a good first nomination. It's not like
Daniel Day-Lewis.
No, it's not this layered performance from our greatest actor in his final work.
Yeah. Oh, I know. And then Best Actress, kick out Margot Robbie for I, Tonya, put in Vicky Krieps, give her the Oscar. I love Meryl in the Post, though. I do.
I love Saoirse and Lady Bird. That's
I do too.
Yeah.
So if I'm going, is this? No, I think I'm looking at the wrong year.
And then I kick out The Big Sick and I put the screenplay in and give it.
Of course.
But honestly, I would give Nolan maybe director for Dunkirk. I think that's such a directorial achievement, but I would give picture and screenplay to Phantom Thread. That's what I would do.
I want PTA to have a directing Oscar, and this is my favorite movie of his.
I know, but also like Dunkirk is.
I love Dunkirk, but I just think this is bigger.
I would give the directing Oscar. I would give it to him for There Will Be Blood or The Master, maybe.
See, I think he should have 3. So
no, I would give it to him like over across a bunch of films. Like it's like I even like Boogie Nights is a movie too. I'd even consider him for I would consider him for director.
I'm just looking. Is this my favorite movie of the year? I think it is.
Of this year?
Mine,
oh yeah,
of course.
It's like not even close. That's why it was so.
Also,
it was
Johnny Greenwood should have won.
Yeah.
Although, excuse me, this is the year that Twin Peaks: The Return came out. It is a film that is
not you're going to be one of those people. God damn it!
I just saw it pop up on Letterboxd, and I was like, "That's the one."
That's not a film.
Do you have the House of Woodcock Lego set?
No, that one's too expensive. I've been scoping eBay for it to go down a little bit in price, but it is like the fashion heads are like out of control on that.
I have the cottage. Jay, have you ever gotten the cottage set?
Haven't gotten the cottage set.
Comes with your own wild mushrooms.
I did buy the New Year's party set, which is pretty good. It's
probably the best one.
With the wagon with the Confederate flag on it in the
then I put it right next to my Babylon set. I feel like they're aesthetically kind of similar.
Yeah, they're
the Babylon one is like huge though, but it's kind of awkward when people come downstairs and there's like nude Legos and stuff. But that's
like an elephant taking a shit on everyone.
Of the beast. When you're a hobbyist like I am, you accept the artistic license that people take with these Legos.
Jay, how do you have money for your family with the posters and these Lego sets? It feels like
I don't.
Okay,
nobody's eating there. Huh? We are what is commonly referred to as house poor.
Okay, there you go.
But at least I got all these collectibles.
There you go. All right, and on that note, Sophia, thank you so much for coming on this Phantom Thread episode.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for having me.
Did we get everything out? Did you?
I think most of the things.
You got anything else?
Really?
Last things?
Of course, I have more things, but like we don't
Say
need
it.
to talk
Come
about
on.
every single scene.
Yes, we do.
Okay, well, one of my favorite shots in the movie is this very slow zoom.
Michael Jordan
Reynolds
from downtown.
Reynolds and Alma on the couch after they've reconstructed the wedding dress.
We didn't even talk about that.
Beautiful slow zoom, and it goes right past, like slow, and it goes past that wedding dress. And the second the wedding dress is out of the frame, that's when Reynolds has the conversation with Alma about never wanting to be without her. And it's just such a beautiful symbol of what we've seen so far in the movie. And I think it's just like, again, one of PTA's amazing choices as a director in the movie.
Never cursed.
I also want to mention never cursed. Yeah. One of my favorite quotes that's underrated is when Biddy, another great character name, after Reynolds falls and
yes,
to Cyril's office, she's like, there's shoe polish on the dress. And Cyril's like, shoe polish from what? She's like, from his shoe.
From his shoe.
So funny.
Yeah, that's good.
It's like Cyril can't really believe that has happened.
Like, what do you think it came from, Cyril?
Yeah, I don't know. I love the New Year's Eve party. I think this is such a good New Year's Eve movie, and that Chelsea Arts Club ball, which was a real New Year's Eve party that would happen at that time in London. I think it's just so beautiful, and it's when you really feel that generational divide and the difference between Reynolds and Alma there. And when he goes to look for her, it's just so sad and beautiful, very Sternbergian. I don't know. It's really great. I love this movie so much, you guys. Thank you. To be in love with this movie makes life no great mystery.
This was your maestro, Sophia. Not in the sense that it's a mediocre movie, but in the sense that you conducted this symphony with such aplomb and skill and precision. Yes.
Yeah. Also, Maestro, good movie. Tar, great movie. Thank you.
Maestro bad, guys.
No, you're not going to do this.
Bad.
You're not doing this.
When did you see Maestro? Oh, this is it. This is.
Did you watch it in a screener or in a theater?
I watched it on a screener.
Oh, that's terrible.
No.
You.
It doesn't. No. It's not good.
I watched it on a screener recently. Doesn't compare. You got to see it in the theater with the sound.
I mean, that's fine. It doesn't solve the giant hole in the middle of that story, which is why the fuck did you make that movie? That it lacks any sort of drive, whatever.
We're not doing this today, but also Maestro better than A Star Is Born. Put it on the record. Thank you.
That is insane.
Oh, I like A Star Is Born better than Maestro on my rewatches. I do like A Star Is Born more.
Because halfway through that movie, I go, "Oh, this movie sucks."
Maestro bad.
It doesn't suck.
The back half of A Star Is Born, awful.
Listen, let's not talk about
better
Bradley
than both
Cooper.
halves.
Let's talk about Phantom Thread and how perfect this movie is, and how I'm so sad that Daniel Day-Lewis has retired and won't return to acting. But I'm so glad that this is his
Do you
final
think he'll
role.
ever come back?
I think he will.
No, I don't.
Yes, I do.
I don't.
I do. He will come
I'll tell
back.
you why I don't think so. So and then I'm so sorry, I'm dragging this on forever, but
No, it's fine. It's the greatest outro ever.
When Daniel Day-Lewis was young, he played Hamlet on stage, and Daniel Day-Lewis is a very dramatic individual, as we know, but he believed that he saw his father's ghost on stage. He left the stage and never returned mid-performance. He decided he was done. That was hard for him. And when Daniel Day-Lewis decides he's finished with something, he's finished with it. I really believe that. And I wonder if a lot of this was, I don't know. I wonder if the part with his mother's ghost was hard for him in a similar light. It's kind of like bookends on his career, but yeah, I don't know. I'm choosing to believe that, but I would love to be proven wrong, of course. I
I
would
feel
love
like
for him to come
with
I
back.
think there
with
are
all
two.
those tats, I think he could be like a fit in like a David Ayer movie.
I think there are only two
I think
directors,
that's the
and
move.
there's only two directors in the world that'll get him out of retirement. One has already done it before, and that's Martin Scorsese, and the other one is Paul Thomas Anderson. And I do think that they have one more in them.
Oh, you know what? Daniel Day-Lewis would have been a good William Hale.
For hell yeah, he
It
would
would
have
have been
been
a
a good
very
King Hell.
Houston-esque
Very much.
turn.
Yeah,
Anyway,
Killers of the Flower Moon, great movie.
Maybe he'll
Yes.
come back to Stevie Spiel. You know,
Ooh,
he could have been in Ready
Spielberg
Player
could
One.
yeah, he could have been like the billionaire in Ready Player One. Right? Yeah, no. I think that those are the only two. Scorsese, because when Martin Scorsese asks you, and probably one of his last films to come do it,
He hasn't done a
it.
Scorsese movie in 20 years though.
Yeah, but he has
takes
a
long
he has,
breaks.
has a
between
long
movies,
break.
though.
Like I mean, he did early '90s with Scorsese, and then it took him like 15
10,
years.
it was
and
like
then
10.
Yeah, so it could happen. And I think
PTA, the gap was
I think
10,
PTA
yeah.
I think PTA could really happen. Honestly, actually, 2027. Book it now.
2027.
Yeah, there
Let's
you go.
do it.
That's when the film comes out. No, yeah, everything you said, Sophia. I absolutely agree. Like this movie is incredible, and
The MCU really needs some juice right now.
God damn it, stop it.
How much money would it take to get him?
There's
in
not
some
enough.
tights?
There's not enough. Well, they do need a new Mr. Fantastic, I guess. So
What if they announce that he's the new Superman in the James Gunn DC universe?
Well, they already announced
Daniel
that.
Day-Lewis?
They already
Yeah.
they already announced, Jay, that it was somebody else, dude.
Oh, they did.
Yeah. No,
if he was
would
like a retired Superman.
No, if he could be
Yeah.
he'd be like Superman's dad from like Krypton, like play the Brando part.
No,
Like,
they do.
I'd
They
go
do.
see it.
They do Batman, and they do like the Batman Beyond arc where there's old Batman
and
he
like Daniel
plays
Day-Lewis is
Bruce
old
Wayne.
Batman. Yeah.
Yeah.
He'd
I would
totally
go
kill
see him
that.
in anything.
Yeah, honestly,
I saw
in this
Nine.
We
movie-
are cooking with
Honestly,
gas here.
in this movie, he has the Batman Beyond sort of hair with like the slick back and everything.
I love
Yeah.
the slick back hair. It's
Yeah.
a great look for him.
So, Sophia, can you tell everybody where they can find you and all your work on the internet?
Yeah, of course. You can find me on Twitter at Sophia_Sim, Letterboxd, same handle without the underscore. You can find my podcast, Oscar Wilde. We release episodes every Friday. You can find us at Oscar Wilde Pod. And you can find all my work, reviews, interviews, including one with Leslie Manville for Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris, and one with Harriet Sansom Harris, aka Barbara Rose, for Hacks at AwardsWatch. I'm going to work through the Phantom Thread cast and crew.
Yeah,
I
we'll
hope
get
to.
Vicky and Daniel Day-Lewis and PTA one day. So,
Look,
Ugh.
in
No,
addition
you-
to
Loved it when
wanting
that
to
was
write
airs.
the Criterion essay, I would love to write a book about Daniel Day-Lewis. I would
Yeah.
love to write his biography.
I'm telling you also, talk about if it got competitive around here, if there was a PTA interview opportunity, I think Sophia and I would like fight each other to the death for that. But no, Sophia, thank you so much for coming on and talking about your favorite film of all time. This
course.
is great.
Thank you,
And
guys.
I hope the
Fun.
Swifties are kind to you this week.
I don't really mind.
I don't give a shit either. Jay? Same stuff.
Find me on Letterboxd, J Ledbetter. Twitter, Mr. J Ledbetter. As for movie recommendation of the week, not Maestro. And
God damn
I will say my actual movie recommendation is Godzilla -1, which I finally saw and freaking rules. And I think
Okay.
is one that really benefits from being seen in a movie theater. The sound in that movie. The thing that I was so impressed by with that movie is how scary it is. Most movies
Cool.
like that
I
are
want to see it.
not willing to like really shake you up, and that one really, really did.
Wow.
And it's just a real rousing.
Achievement.
I'm so enthusiastic about that movie. I thought it was spectacular.
All right.
So go check out Godzilla -1.
Yeah. You can find all my work at awardswatch.com, Letterboxd, Instagram, Twitter, at Ryan McQuade 77. Everybody here's been putting in some great work. Jay has a great review of the Iron Claw. Sophia's doing great interviews. I've been doing a lot of great interviews. Everybody on the site's been doing great interviews. Please go to the website and do that while you're over at the website. Sign up for the newsletter. That's how you can get all access emailed to you to see all of our great work weekly. If you like podcasts, the AwardsWatch main show, where everybody here has been featured throughout the year, you can go and listen to that one, as well as also go to Spotify and iTunes. 5-star reviews are great. We love them. If not, I mean, I don't really want to see them because they hurt my eyes and ears. Recommendation this week.
God, how bad is Sarah Silverman in Maestro? Unreal.
I'm gonna talk about another movie that Jay doesn't like, but I don't give a shit because I know Sophia likes it. I rewatched it. It's actually like one of my fave experiences of doing all the rewatches. I watched Saltburn again, and I really like it. And I say it because my wife got to see it, and she had an absolute blast with it. And just watching her reactions to things. And the movie's a little bit messy, but you know what? There are a lot of other messy movies that are created by men all the time, like Babylon, that get passes from people. So I will say that Saltburn is my hill to die
Saltburn
on.
is like pretty watchable. It is completely empty provocation, but it is watchable.
It's fun. I love a little smut every so often. I think it's fun.
I think it's fun. I think
I agree. It's better than Babylon.
Better than Babylon. It's way better than Fennell's last film, Promising Young Woman.
Oh yeah.
And I also just remember also seeing it with Sophia at Telluride. We had a blast. But then watching it at home, it's also like really talk about a beautiful looking movie from Linus Sandgren. Incredibly great performances. And Jacob Elordi. Talk about somebody that needs to work with PTA. My God.
He needs to work with Jane Campion.
Can you imagine like a movie where Daniel Day-Lewis and Jacob Elordi play a father and son? That might break
please stop.
Sophia.
Look, him and Richard Gere in the new Paul Schrader movie will be enough
with Uma?
for me for a while.
With Uma?
Yeah.
Priscilla was very good.
Yeah,
Priscilla's so good. Yes.
I love Priscilla.
I love Priscilla. Positive movie recommendation for me that hopefully you can both agree on, so we're not split with our last minute recommendations. I Know Where I'm Going, the Powell and Pressburger movie. I watched that recently and I really loved it. Yeah.
I know where I'm going.
I like Powell and Pressburger.
Yeah, those are guys. You know what, Jay? I'm gonna say this about Powell and Pressburger. Controversial. Good at their jobs.
Yes.
They're awesome.
Very good at their jobs. And I have to thank Jay, because Jay was the real reason why I got into Powell and Pressburger. And so,
hooray!
When we saw Matter of Life and Death, Sophia and I, earlier this year at AFI, the first person I texted after that was Jay, because I was like, one, it's his favorite, but two,
that is probably one of my 10 favorite movies ever. I adore that movie.
Mm-hmm.
So next week we'll be back. We're going to wrap up this whole PTA series. We're going to be talking about some licorice pizza, and there's not going to be a damn thing controversial about that whatsoever. So if you don't want to listen to it, sorry, get over it. It's a great movie.
I'm coming in hot with some takes.
Yeah, and all the bad takes, leave them at the door. All right,
nope,
thank you
I'm
so
coming
much.
in with the bad ones.
Oh, well, there you go. We'll see you all next time.